What's up guys, Chaos Shinobi here. This is What If Naruto is Thunder God. Summary: Naruto is taken and raised in Kumo. Watch as he turns the world on its head as the third son of the Raikage. Bow before the god of lightning, the Raijin. Chapter 1, Raikage's Office. Kumagakure, one of the 5 great ninja villages. It is home of some of the strongest ninjas in the world, including its leader, the Sun Daime Raikage, Z. Z was one of the strongest ninja to ever live. A testament was when he fought 10,000 shinobi and held them off for 3 days and nights before his reinforcements came, but today he was facing the strongest enemy he had ever faced, paperwork. I cannot wait until A is of age because I will be stepping down so fast. He mutters to himself when he sees a copy of the bingo book. He opens it to the first page of Konoha to see the fastest man alive and his son's rival, Minato Namikaze. His son A was the second fastest man alive, only behind Minato Namikaze, the Ondaime Hokage in terms of speed. Konoha has been rather quiet recently. They could be plotting something, Z says to himself before snapping his fingers. A bolt ninja with a tiger mask drops from the ceiling and bows in front of his Raikage. Tora, get A and Bolt Unit 13 and tell them to report to my office ASAP for a S-rank mission, Z says, which causes Tora to nod and shine away in a flash of lightning. Less than 2 minutes later, A and Unit 13 walk through the door. What's up, Pops? A says, which causes Z to slide the bingo book open to the Konoha page over to A. Check on Konoha but don't leave any trace that you were spying or we will have war. Dismissed, Z explains and then dismisses them with a wave of his hand. A and the unit nod before leaving in a shunshine. Something tells me tonight is going to be life-changing, Z says to himself as he stares out the window. How right he was. Forests outside of Konoha. A lands on a tree branch which shatters under the pressure put onto it with his active lightning release armor before he shunshines off of it towards the mighty roar he hears. In front of him is the Kyubi no Yoko, the 9-tailed demon fox, and it is currently in battle with the Ondaime Hokage, Minato Namikaze. They may not be friends, but Minato and A had a mutual respect for each other, and A knew taking on the Kyubi was suicide for one person even if it was the fastest man alive. A blur of blue to everyone except to someone with a dojutsu. A reaches the ridge only to see the Kyubi bellow in rage before stabbing its claw at an altar, but not before Minato and a red-haired woman jump in front of it, blocking the claw with their abdomens. Minato claps his hands and the Kyubi gets sucked into the altar, roaring in rage. AN. All of Kurama has been sealed in Naruto, not half. The couple embrace before Minato drops, causing the woman to scream before falling to her knees, and is about to fall forward when A appears in a shunshine and catches her. A recognizes the long red hair and a heart-shaped face. This is Kushina Uzumaki, the aka Noshi. A thinks to himself. Protect him, his name is N. Kushina speaks to A before her eyes glaze over, and it was that moment that one of the Elemental Nation's greatest sword masters left the world. A nods his head before picking up the crying baby. He had spiky golden hair and 3 whisker marks on each side of his face that were scrunched up due to him crying. It's like he knows his parents are dead, A thinks to himself. Don't worry, Unson, big brother, is here, he says as he cradles the baby and begins to tree hop back to Unit 13. Who is the child? A Samataka, Hawk, asks the son of the Raikage. The small baby looked very small in comparison to the buff upper body of A, and while they both have blonde hair, the child's was spiky unlike A's braided hair. He is Mayatoto, says with a little killing intent, which causes everyone to nod without question and begin to run back to Kumo. Raikage's office. You have whose child? Was what resonated through Kumo when A showed the child to his father Z. Z was behind his desk, which was now broken when he slammed his fist onto it. This is the child of Minato Namikaze, the Ondaime Hokage, and Kushina Uzumaki, the aka Noshi, and is also the Jinchuriki of the Kyubi no Yoko. And he's my new little brother, says while enjoying the look of pure shock coming from his father. You want me to adopt the child of the Hokage? He is practically royalty, Z yells, causing his son to raise an eyebrow. Actually, he is a Jinchuriki, and you know how Jinchuriki are treated. Besides, the third Hokage, who will probably take office again, will try to keep his heritage a secret to protect him against Iwa, says with sage-like wisdom, causing Z and all of the Bolt members in the room sweat drop, but not in agreement, as Jinchurikis were very rarely treated correctly. In fact, Kumo had the highest respect out of all of the hidden villages due to early in its history, the Jinchuriki of the Hachibi, 8 Tails, had taken on a small army from Kiri that had invaded. Fine. What's his name? Z says as he reaches into his piles of paperwork and pulls out a bunch of adoption papers. I don't know. All his mother said before she died was N, says, which causes Z to light up. What's wrong with N? It's powerful, short and easy to remember, Z says as he continues to fill out the forms. Easy to remember, huh? Is that where our names came from, you lazy ass? I thinks with a sweat drop. Done. From now on this child's name is Enyatsuki Namikaze. Z says as he signs the paper. A cheers causing N to giggle. Z activates his hell stab technique and pricks his finger as a knife would not be able to even scratch it. He then takes a small pin and carefully pricks the hand of N before taking his blood and placing it into the cut, completing the ceremony. Our lives are going to be changed forever, and for the better, Z mumbles to himself as he watches A play with the baby with a smile on his face. Time skips 6 years. N. A yells causing N to begin running, but A was easily able to catch the 6-year-old. N was tall for his age due to have begun training and was wearing the outfit his biological father wore when he was a Jinan. He had golden blonde hair and bright blue eyes along with 3 whiskers on each side of his faces, so he looked very much like a carbon copy of his father when he was a Jinan. He was about low Jinan in strength but had inherited his father's durability due to the blood ceremony he received as a baby. A looked the same except a little older, and now he was covered in ice water that N had dropped on him. Hold on, Ensign. B says I can't prank you. But I can, and that's why I sank you. Word. N yells and begins to rap before ending with his arms crossed. A sweat drops and wonders what the hell that means before charging his elbow with electricity. Elbow. Was all that the people of Kumo had when they saw a flying ant soaring over the village before crashing into the Raikage's office. What the hell, N? Z yells when he sees his youngest son slam through his wall into his office during his conversation with Yugito Ni, the Jinchuriki of Nibino Nakamata. She was 6 just like N but about 2 inches shorter and was wearing a blue kimono with blue flame designs. Hey Tosan. Bini bet me that I couldn't prank Ni, but I did, so now he says he will help train me. Now I'll be the strongest and be the next Raikage. N yells as he punched the air with his fist, not noticing the only other person in the room. You are going to be Raikage when you are not even the size of my bicep? Z says, which causes N to crawl up into a ball in a corner and cry while muttering, "You're so mean, Tosan." A and B, while they loved their brother, loved to tease him as in comparison, he was very skinny. Anyway, and when you are stop being emo, I would like you to meet Yugito Ni, someone else with a similar burden like you. Z says, causing N for the first time to notice the other girl in the room. Kurama, which number is she? N asks in his head, causing the giant 9-tailed fox in his mind to sigh. Yep, Naruto is in contact with the Kyuubi and has been since he was 5 when a Biju hater attacked him and almost killed him, causing him to meet the Kyuubi, or as he called him, Kurama. Add a B to her last name, Kurama says, which causes N to think in his mindscape. Niib, Nbai, Nibi. Oh, she's Matatabi's Jinchuriki. N says in his head, causing Kurama to sigh in his head in relief that his Jinchuriki didn't rap constantly like Yuki's. Hi little Miss Do, how do you do? N raps, causing Z and Yugito sweat drop. Hi? Matatabi says to tell Kurukun that she loves what he did with those 9 tails, Yugito says with an innocent look on her face while wondering why all of the boys had crimson blushes on their faces and blood coming from their noses. You dated Matatabi? N says to Kurama, who nods as he tries to take the blush from his face. Yeah, when we were younger. That poor girl, she is so innocent that she had yet to be corrupted by Matatabi. She is such a pervert that if she wrote those orange books your brothers love, there would be not male a population as they would have all died of blood loss, Kurama says, which causes N to grin. Nice to meet you, Miss Ni, but there are other places I have to be, N says before punching the window, shattering it before jumping through, causing his father to begin steaming out of his ears. Damn it, 10. Use AF $$ #ING door. Z yells out of the hole, making Yugito to smile, thinking, the Yatsuki family is very interesting. 4 years later, Naruto is 10. I'm going exploring. I'll back soon. N yells as he jumps out the window and begins to sprint to one of the nearby mountains. N was now 4 feet 8 inches and had a swimmer's build compared to his family's. Holy crap, those are big muscles build. He was physically weaker, however made up for it with his speed, which was tuning speed, and his multiple weight seals along with a multiplier seal that overall increased his strength. He began the trek up the steep mountain and had to use chakra to grab onto the path, which was slippery. This is going to take forever, N says to Kurama, who could do nothing but nod and enjoy the show. 1 hour later, N made it to the summit to see a temple that he had never noticed. It had a couple large torii and in fact looked very much like the Shaolin temples in the Land of Fire. How could no one have noticed this? N says to Kurama, who shrugs his shoulder. No one but the Raikages and a select few has attempted to climb this mountain. Actually, I don't think anyone has been up here in 15 years since your father climbed it. Kurama says, causing N to nod and knock on the solid wood oak door. The door opens and a man that appears to be in his late 20s opens the door. He has long red hair that is tied in a thick ponytail and had a cross-shaped scar on his left cheek. He is wearing a plain burgundy men's kimono of cheap, worn cloth with a white hakama, zori and white tabi. In his hand was a katana with a black steel sheath, however the Saggio was tying the tsuba to the saya, meaning that the man could not draw it on him, calming N's nerves a bit. Hello young man. You seem very tired, would you like to come in? This one could use some company, the man invites, causing N to flinch for a second before nodding. The man nods and turns around before walking back into the temple. N follows him into the temple to see the man pouring tea and gesturing for him to sit on one of the two cushions of the floor. N looks around the room to see pictures all around the walls, most including a woman with long black hair, a man with short spiky black hair, or a young boy that looked much like the man who had invited him in. Oh yes, that is my family. This one had to leave them many years ago. Oh, this one has seemed to have forgotten his manners. My name is Himura Kenshin, the man says as he begins to pour the tea. Inside of N's mindscape, Kurama was wondering where he had heard that name before. Arigato Kenshin-san. My name is En Yatsuki, son of the Reikage. I am sorry, but may I ask you a question if it is not too intrusive? You say many years ago, however you seem very young? En says as he takes the tea and begin to sip the tea. Kurama begins to think, Himura. Where have I heard that name? Himura, Badosai. Oh my god. If this is who I think this is. You are very intelligent to catch that, En-kun. This one may look young, but in fact this one is more than 45 years of age. Kenshin says as he sips his tea and looks at the pictures with nostalgia. En is in shock. This man looked to be a little older than Beanie, but in fact was just a little younger than his father, who was 52. Wow, you look very young. En says, causing Kenshin to scratch the back of his head sheepishly. It is a side effect of this one's Kenjutsu style, he says as he flashes a quick look at the sword to his side. Kurama jumps up and down in En's head and is thinking, I knew it. Whoa. You know Kenjutsu. Will you teach me? En says, causing Kenshin to look embarrassed. This one does not teach anymore. I am sorry, En-kun, Kenshin says, which causes En to start crying on the floor. Please. En jumps onto his knees and begins to plead. Kenshin does not look like he was going to break, so En decides to break out the big guns. En flashes through some hand signs, causing Kenshin to go on guard. He may like the boy, but he was a ninja that he had just met and just told some unpleasant news. Ninja art, puppy dog eyes no jutsu. En yells and activates the SSS rank jutsu that Yugito and Kuro had taught him. Kenshin was about to tell him to stop playing around before he notices how it looked so much like what Kaoru used to do. Kenshin looks over to a picture of him and Kaoru on their wedding day and sighs. Why do you want to learn Kenjutsu? Kenshin says, causing En to think. To be strong, no. For power, no. I just want to protect everyone. Pops, Ani, Beanie, Daruni, Yugito, everyone. There are people precious to me and I want to protect them. I can't protect them from everything, but I would lay my life on the line for them, En says with fire in his eyes. Sigh, okay, come back tomorrow with a katana, Kenshin says before smiling. En would not make the same mistakes as him. Kenshin stands up, causing En to and begin walking to the door. Thanks a lot, Kenshin-sensei. I'll see you tomorrow. En says with a smile and a wave as he begins the climb down the mountain. Reikage's office. En walks into his father's office to see him stuck under a bunch of paperwork. The greatest Reikage, the man with the strongest shield and spear, was being defeated by paperwork. Worthy of a picture it was. Yo pops. I need you to take me to the Dragon's Fang. En yells, causing Z to whip his head out of that pile so fast En was afraid he got whiplash. Why? Know what, I don't care, let's go. He says as he jumps up and grabs his son from the collar before rushing out the door. It wasn't until they were 5 minutes away from the weapon store when Z asks his son the question that should have jumped straight to his mind. So En, why do you need to go to the weapon shop? Z asks as they walk through the village. The kids they passed always looked at the two of them with awe, as it was their leader and his son, and they were just walking through the village like everyone else. I found myself a Kenjutsu teacher on that mountain nearby, and he told me to find a katana for lessons tomorrow. His name is Himura Kenshin, and says, causing Z to look at him in shock before satisfaction. His son was going to be trained by one of, if not the greatest living swordsman in the elemental nations. Okay, we're here, Z says with a smile on his face when as they stand in front of the Dragon's Fang and walk inside to see an older blonde man in his early 50s at the counter. The Dragon's Fang itself was impressive due to the weapons all over the walls. Katanas, bow staffs, naganatas, nunchucks, and just about any other weapon. Well, if it isn't my friend Lil Z, the blonde says with a smile. That's when Naruto recognized him. He was Samui, who was one of En's good friend's father. I am not little. Know what, screw you, Ando, En. Samui means cool and Atsui means hot, so I gave their father a name that means temperature, Z says as he walks up and shakes Ando's hand. Oh hey, I know you. You're Samui's friend En, right? So what do you need? Ando says with a smile, causing En to smile. I need a katana, En says, causing Ando to smile and gesture to the walls around him. En walks over to the katana area and picks one out and holds it in his hand before putting it back. This continues for about 15 minutes before he walks back over to Ando and Z. None of these feel right, Sarian says with an embarrassed look on his face. Ando smirks before looking over to Z, who is chuckling. All three of your kids, I think that is a new record, Ando says to Z, who is nodding, and N, who has a puzzled look on his face. I feel like I am being left out of something. N says to Ando, who reaches into his desk and pulls a key from a drawer. My clan, the Hito clan, has a pseudo bloodline that allows us to create weapons that will connect to their users and will activate abilities based on its user. Both of your brothers have Hito weapons. A has gold bands that increase his strength while limiting his speed but can be released to double it, and B's 7 swords are all perfectly balanced and has lightning chakra pushed into it, making it just like the Kiba swords of the mist. Ando explains as he walks to the center of the shop and unlocks a secret trapdoor in the floor. Go inside and find your perfect weapon, Z says, which causes N to nod and walk downstairs. Inside of the chamber is piles of gold and silver and lots of other treasure, and more importantly is the thousands upon thousands of weapons on the walls. N begins to pick up katana after katana until he feels a pull that drags him to the right and into the depths of the weapons before he pulls out a black katana with the kanji for Ryu on it in white. Instead of having a normal pommel, it had a black dragon head. N grabs the wrap and draws the blade to see that it is pure black with the kanji engraved on it that says, "Do not fight like a warrior, but dance like a dragon." Overall it was beautiful. N was walking back to the ladder when he felt one more pulls to his left. N looks down on the floor to see a pair of black steel tonfa that calling to him as well. He picks them up and begins to spin them awesomely before hitting himself in the funny bone, causing him to jump around like an idiot. Just grab the tonfa and katana and go upstairs, Kurama says, causing N to sigh and take everything and climb the stairs. The light blinds N as he exits the underground chamber and returns back to the overground version of the store. I'm back. N yells as he pulls himself out of the door. Ando and Z rush up to help him but are shocked when they see what he is holding. He had two things. Sometimes people would get twin, or like B would get multiple of the same weapon, but never has anyone ever received two separate Hito items. Ando then takes a closer look at the weapons to be even more startled. Those weapons belong to the Shadaime Raikage. Ando yells, causing Z and N to whip their heads around very fast. What? They yelled in unison before turning and glaring at each other. When a hero of Kumo is about to die, or if they told me before time, they can have their weapons enchanted by my clan and placed in the chamber for one of the next generation to use. Ando explains as he walks over to the counter, causing them to nod in understanding. So how much do I owe you? And asks the man, who begins to punch in numbers but then stops. Know what, I was going to charge you, but instead let's make a deal. You become a hero, and when you get older, you give me your weapons for the next generations, Ando says as he puts out his hand. Gotcha, Ando-san. And says as him and his father begin to walk out the door. I might see you sooner than that if you are going to be my son-in-law. He yells out of the closing door. Too bad he couldn't see the crimson blush on N's face as he walked back to Raikage Tower. A month later. This last month had been one of the best and worst times of N's life. It had been the best as he had made a new friend in Kenshin Sensei and had been learning Kenjutsu, in particular the Hiten Mitsurugi Ryu, one of the hardest and most powerful Kenjutsu styles ever. I do not own Hiten Mitsurugi Ryu and Himura Kenshin in any way or form. The style was so difficult that it had required N to do a month of physical conditioning to even attempt to learn the first technique, not to even mention the fact the Kenshin sensei was a slave driver and had made him do hundreds and hundreds of just about every exercise. Kenshin had also looked through the library and found the techniques and styles of the Shadaime Raikage. The style called Supin had techniques like Lano-sen Supin, I don't know if that is right, but I tried, or House of 1,000 Spins and 100 others that N swore that he would master. But today is the best day of them all because Ani promised to test his affinity, and Kenshin Sensei, while he was not a ninja, knew about chakra flow and had promised to help him flow his affinity through it. Ani, so what do I have to do? Extremely hyper, N says to his brother. Just size and hands his brother a small square of piece of paper. Okay, just push your chakra into the paper and it will do something based on your affinity. If you have fire, the paper will ignite and turn to ash. If you have a wind, it'll split in two. Lightning, the paper will wrinkle. If you have earth, the paper will turn to dirt and crumble away, and lastly if you have water, the paper will become wet/damp. Got it? I explains, but by that time N had already pushed in his chakra and was watching what was happening. The ball crinkled up into a ball so tight it looked like it couldn't be pulled apart while sparking pure white lightning before it got split down the middle, and each half became so soggy that it fell apart. Oh my god. A yells causes N to go flying backwards and hold his ears in pain. You have three affinities, a lightning affinity that is equal or greater than the Nidaime's water affinity, an extremely high water affinity, and a bloodline that gives you pure white lightning. A yells causing N to scratch his head sheepishly. What can I say? I'm awesome. and yells as he pumps his fist into the air. Something tells me that this is going to be interesting, says as he begins to explain the beginning steps of elemental control. 2 years later, graduation day. And woke up with a smile on his face because today was the day he became a real ninja. Sure, he had been training from a young age and his was jounin level, but he was still a civilian, but that was going to change today. And was now 5 feet 3 inches, which was tall for his age, and he had a swimmer's build as Kenshin sensei refused to let him to be a bodybuilder's build, because as he said, this one will not have an apprentice that looks like a gorilla. No offense to Raikage Dono and A Dono, but no honorable swordsman will have that build. However, he had broad shoulders and a six-pack, so while he was not buff, he was still extremely strong. His hair was spiky, but 2 bangs ran along the side of his face much like his biological father, but 3 whiskers on either side of his cheeks which were thicker than they used to be due to the influence of Kurama's chakra. He had almost mastered Hitan Mitsurugi Ryu and had even managed to make it even more deadly by combining his lightning chakra to make it sharper and longer to the size of a Nadachi, making it even more powerful. He had also mastered his Raiten chakra to the level of his father. However, his Fuitan techniques are only tuning level due to lack of teachers in the Kaminari no Kuni, and his Suiten, while very powerful, was only low jounin due to lack of work he put into it. It was due this that he now had 2 tattoos on his shoulders much like his family, a tattoo of the kanji for lightning on his right shoulder and the kanji for white right underneath it. It was the tradition in Kumo for that when a ninja has mastered their affinity, they would get a tattoo of it on their body, much like how Daruni had a water and lightning tattoo as he had mastered them. His lightning affinity, they found, was even more powerful than the Nidimes, to the level where he could use natural lightning and feel the bioelectricity in people to sense them. At first, Z was confused by how powerful it was, but then realized that Minato must have had a strong affinity to lightning due to the fact that the Hiraishin being a Raiten technique, and just roll with it, and when Z gave N the blood ceremony, it must have strengthened his natural affinity to untold levels. Not to mention the fact that the QB being sealed in N may have mutated it, making the lighting white. When N found out the reason why he had such a powerful affinity, and he had received it from his biological father who was known for his teleportation technique, he swore he would surpass all of his family as the fastest man in history. As such, he had looked into Fuinjutsu and was no level 8 out of 10, as his Uzumaki blood must have kicked in, making him in 2 years, a seal master that was 1 level higher than Jiraiya of the Sannin. But was even more impressive than his determination was his bloodline, the Shirotan bloodline. There had been no record of the bloodline, so N took his father's notes about black lightning and used it to analyze his own lightning. He found out that while his father's black lightning moved at half the speed of normal lightning through the use of a seal, his white lightning moved at twice the speed, making the lightning move twice as many volts through an enemy and twice as fast. Imagine when N attempted his brother's Raiten no Yoroi, he moved close to the same speed as his brother without any practice. The possibilities of the Shirotan, white release, techniques were vast, and it was not something that went unnoticed by the council and fangirls. Yes, the bane of all male ninjas, fangirls. Luckily, Samui and Yugito were there to protect him, quite viciously. Yet the council saw him as the golden boy and had tried to marry him off to their daughters left and right. N sighs as he throws on a pair of black Hanbu pants and a black sleeveless shirt with white lightning bolts at the bottom. N continues to get dressed as he places 3 long leather belts crisscrossed around his waist in place of an obi and threads kokuryu through it before tying the sagio to his waist. Lastly, he attaches his tonfas to the back of his waist and he is ready. N runs out of his room and knocks on all of the doors in the Raikage mansion, waking up the rest of the Yatsukis in the process. Jumps out of his room in white pajamas with pig slippers on and a sleeping cap that was hanging off his head haphazardly, along with a bunch of kunais in hand. "Screw you, N!" he yells as he throws the kunai, but by the time N was down the hall knocking over B, who had came out of his room. "Graduation exam today. Gotta go," N says as he jumps out the window and lands on a platform of lightning. "Bye," N yells as he begins to sprint along the platforms towards the academy. "That boy will kill me one day," Z says, making A and B nod before going back to bed like nothing happened. Academy. N jumps off his platform and does a somersault before landing in front of his 4 friends that was standing in front of the academy. They are Amoi, Karu, Samui, and Yugito. Amoi is a 5 feet 1 inch dark-skinned Kumonin with short, spiky, white hair and dark eyes accentuated with lines curving upwards from the corners. He wears a dark outfit consisting of an overlong shirt with a hood, with red bandage hand guards, Kumagakure shin guards, and a lollipop in his mouth. But the most noticeable thing about him is the long katana that is strapped across his back that seemed to be almost impossible for him to draw, but somehow he could do it easily. Kara is a short dark-skinned kunoichi with long red hair and amber eyes with a noticeably flat chest. She is wearing a long sleeveless black dress with fishnet stockings, 2 gold earrings on and had a long sword similar to Amoi's. Samui was an attractive 5'tall girl and she has blue eyes and straight, blonde hair framing her face cut in an asymmetrical bob style with the front bangs reaching her shoulders. She wears a very low-cut outfit which displays her sizable cleavage which even at 12 was C-cup, with mesh armor underneath, a short skirt and red handguards, high boots, and a tanto strapped horizontally along her lower back. Yugito was a 5 feet 2 inches girl with long, straight, blonde, hair bound with taut bandages and dark eyes. She wore a short-sleeved black and purple blouse and black pants, both of which had a design similar to clouds on them, purple fingerless gloves and a chain of blue beads wound around her left hand. And all of his friends have a different number of fingers up, Amoi with 8, Kuro with 7, Samui with 5, although he wasn't sure if she just didn't want to raise her other hand which was holding her lower back, and Yugito with 6. So a 6.5? En says as he scratches the back of his head. Last week's was better. You did 2 somersaults and then landed more gracefully, Yugito says, which causes En to nod as he knew how much she valued gracefulness. But imagine if you had landed wrong and you had broken your leg and you couldn't take the exams and you couldn't become a ninja and you become a civilian and wow. Amoi begins to rant but Kuro punches him hard in the head causing him to go face first into the ground. En-kun, could you give me a back rub? My back is killing me. Samui says as she rubs her back, knowingly pushing her breasts up causing En to be blasted backwards by a stream of blood coming from his nose. Her 4 friends are the only ones that see her emotions and En was the only one that she showed flirtatious ones to. Maybe later, Samui-chan. We have to get to class, En says as he wipes his nose and begins to walk towards the academy. They walk inside of the academy into the class and there is a loud cheer from the fangirls and fanboys that their En-kun and Samui-chan made it to the exam. However, they are quickly silenced from killing intent sent from Naruto, Samui, and Yugito. Oshiru, the proctor of the exam, looks up from his paperwork and up at the clock. Good, you made it in time. Everyone sit down. We will begin the written part of the test, Oshiru says as he hands out tests. When En begins the test, he is surprised how easy it was. Really? Who was the first trackage? Everyone knows that his was M, King of Lightning. En thinks to himself. Not everyone studied the rakages as much as you did. Besides, look around you, a lot of the civilians seem to be having trouble. Kurama says in En's head, and sure enough, when En looks around, he sees some of the civilians struggling. Whatever. I'm done. Wake me up when the exam is over, En says to Kurama, who gives a mental nod. En props up his feet on the table and falls asleep, much to the ire of his friends. 20 minutes later. Wake up, kid. Kurama shouts in En's head, causing En to fall off his chair. Couldn't you have woken me up more gently? I was having a nice dream. En says in the mindscape, causing Kurama to snicker. Sorry I had to break up your perverted dream about Yugito and Samui, Kurama says with a evil grin when he sees En freeze. How did you know about that? En says as he attempts to get the blush off his face as he hands in his test to Oshiru. Duh, I'm in your head. I know what goes on in here, Kurama says, and even though En couldn't see him, he knew he had a huge smirk on his face. Next is the taijutsu section of the test. Meet me outside in the training ground, Oshiru yells and opens the door allowing everyone to exit. Everyone leaves and surrounds a large ring filled with sand. Okay, this is taijutsu and bokijutsu only. Winner by knockout but no killing or crippling blows. Oshiru explains, causing everyone to nod in understanding. He pulls out a clipboard that has all the matches. First match, En Yatsuki vs Kenichi Sato. Oshiru says, causing everyone to groan. Kenichi was that one kid that had a superiority complex due to his clan. The Sato clan was one of the noble clan even though he really wasn't that good. Kenichi walks up to the ring with his katana. He was 5 with shaggy black hair, pale skin and brown eyes which were staring at En. Hold this, I won't need it, En says as he unties Kokuryu and hands it to Yugito, who grabs it. You should stop underestimating me and team. Because I am going to beat you unless you use that sword, and Samui-chan will watch it all and fall in love with me. Kenichi says as he gets into his Kenjutsu stance. There is no need to waste the Hiten Mitsurugi Ryu on you. My Supin is strong enough to defeat you, even if your clan is one of the best Kenjutsu practitioners in Kumo, and says as he pulls out his tonfas and spins them to get ready. Hajime. Oshiru says to start the fight and jumps out of the ring to avoid being hit. Kenichi immediately goes for a overhead slice which En blocks with his right tonfa. En spins his left tonfa and strikes Kenichi's right wrist, causing Kenichi to falter, giving En times to strike his stomach with the right tonfa. Kenichi gets set flying backwards but manages to roll and land on his feet. Not bad, but take this. Kumo Ryu, Omotadri. Cloud style, front beheading. Kenichi then does a long overhead slice at En. Supin, Kaze no Ken. Spin, blade of wind, En yells as he spins his right tonfa at Kenichi. As the tonfa spins, an arc of wind comes out of the end which travels and cuts Kenichi's katana in half, causing Kenichi to look at it in shock, giving En time to jump into the air. Supin, Doropu. En extends his tonfa out as an extension of his arm and drops it onto Kenichi's head, causing him to fall to the ground, unconscious. Winner En Yatsuki. Oshiru proclaims as En walks out of the ring and sits with his friends. Yugito hands him Kokuryu, which he takes with a thank you before pulling out his notes on space-time jutsu. He begins to zone out the rest of the fights as his friends either won close to instantly or it was just a bunch of fangirls catfighting. Okay, it is time for the ninjutsu portion of the exam. Samui Hito. Oshiru yells, causing Samui to come down to the bottom. Okay, please perform the Kawarimi, Henge, Bushin as well as one advanced technique of your choosing. Oshiru instructs, causing Samui to nod. Bunshine, Henge, Kawarimi, Samui says as she creates a bunshine that then changes into the Reikage before switching with it, effectively doing all three techniques as one, causing Oshiru to mark his board. Raiten Kaminari Pijutaru, lightning release lightning pistol, Samui says as she does 5 hand signs, then puts her hand out on a handgun with her thumb up and your middle and pointer finger together. Lightning gathered around the tips of her fingers before it shot off and hit the dummy, sending it flying backwards. You are now an official Junon of Kumagakoer. Congratulations. Come back here tomorrow for team assignment, Oshiru says as he hands Samui a flak jacket and a Hi-8 which she takes and leaves. This continues as everyone takes the exam, but only about 8 people passed including his friends. En Yatsuki, Oshiru says as En walks down. He is the only one left, but that was expected considering that his surname ends as Y. Please perform the Kawarimi, Henge, Bushin as well as one advanced technique of your choosing, Oshiru says to En, who nods. Kawarimi in En's place is A, who has a orange book in hand and is giggling pervertedly. A-sama? Oshiru says, causing A to look up and put away his book at a speed that must have been lightning enhanced. A begins to attempt to come up with an excuse when there is a puff of smoke and En is back there. I forgot it was his smut time. Anyway, Raiten, Cage Bunshine, Hengen says with a sheepish look on his face before creating a lightning clone and turning that into his father. En, why didn't do the bunshine? Oshiru asks as he begins to write notes on her notebook. My chakra levels are too high and I don't have a high enough level of chakra control to do a bunshine. Besides Raiten, Cage Bunshine uses almost no chakra for me and explains, causing Oshiru to nod. Okay then, congratulations, you are now an official Junon of Kumagakoer. Please come back here tomorrow, Oshiru says as he handed En a flak jacket and a white Hi-8. Thanks, Oshiru-sensei. See you tomorrow. En yells as he jumps out the window and begins the run on his platform towards Reikage Tower. Reikage Tower. Yo dad, I passed. En says as he walks into his father's office with his new flak jacket and Hi-8 on. Was there any doubt? Besides, I heard what you did to A. I makes me want to promote you to Chunin, Z says and gives a hearty chuckle. You should. En tries, but Z just shakes his head, causing En to shrug because he tried. En, there's something I want to tell you. You are the last of the Namikaze and Uzumaki clans, and while they are not originally Kumo clans, you could restart them here. As such, in order to bring up the numbers of your clan, you need more than one wife. Kumo doesn't care how many, unlike I heard Konoha, but it should be enough to restore your clan, Z explains and holds his arms around his head in an armadillo position to protect himself from En's rage, but surprisingly there was none. En's was actually in deep thought on how much of a relief this is, as he knew that Yugito and Samui liked him and he couldn't pick one and let down the other. You seem happy to have your own harem, Z says with a perverted grin, causing En to go red and attempt to change the subject. Yeah, I have an idea for my space-time jutsu. Here, check my notes. It may be a little advanced as it has some master-level Fuinjutsu in it, En says as he changes the subject and he slides his notes over toward his father, who takes a few minutes and reads through it before looking up with a look of shock. Is this what I think it is? Z says, completely forgetting the previous subject as he hands the notes back to En. Yep. Only you, A-ni, and I could use this technique, although I doubt you guys would want to. En says with a proud look on his face. Yeah. I'll get Mabui to send you the notes on the technique we have in the Reikage archives. Oh, Kenshin-san told me to tell you to meet him at the temple. Z explains as he writes himself a note. Gotcha, pops. See you later. En yells as slams through the wall, making a big hole. Damn it, 10. Z yells as he looks at the hole. That boy is going to give me gray hairs, but his potential is amazing. One day, you could become Reikage. Z thinks to himself before looking back to his desk to see 2 piles of paperwork. Hi. Was heard all over Kumo. The mountain. Ni-sensei, I passed. En yells as he opens the door but stops when he sees Kenshin sitting in the middle of the field. Kenshin had eventually grown to be a big brother to En but was still his teacher, so En began to combine Ni-san and Sensei and thus was born Ni-sensei. Sit down En-kun because today is your final exam, Kenshin says, causing En to sigh as he knew this day was coming. Hitan Mitsurugi Ryu is known by very few people in history due to the fact that it has only passed on from master to apprentice for 14 generations, with each apprentice taking the life of his master. On the mountain. No matter happens today, teaching you has been one of the greatest time of my life. Kenshin says, causing En to wipe a tear before looking his Ni-sensei in the eyes. There was silence and suddenly both of the swordsmen were in a Butjutsu stance. Uzuryusen, nine-headed dragon flash, Kenshin yells as he draws his sword and strikes at En 9 times simultaneously. A dashing attack that uses Shinsoku, Godspeed, to simultaneously strike all 9 vital spots on the foe's body from a normal kendo stance, as each of these 9 points are the main targets for different sword styles. It is said to be undodgeable and nearly unblockable. En knew the only way to survive was to use the most difficult technique of Hitan Mitsurugi Ryu. He charged his body with lightning to quicken his reaction time and got ready for the strikes to get closer. Amikaku Ryu no Haramki, flash of the heavenly flying dragon. En yells as he performed its form as that of any other Butjutsu strike. The Amikaku Ryu no Haramki differs in that, while a normal strike is performed by drawing the katana from its sheath on one side while stepping forward with the opposite foot, this strike adds yet another step mid-draw with the leading foot adjacent to the sheath. This endangers the user by possibly putting the adjacent leg into the free sword's path and draws one even closer to an opponent's sword than usual, but on the other hand, boosts both the power and the speed of the Butjutsu swing. By realizing one's insignificance and risking life and limb to protect something else while, at the same time, taking one's own, fragile human life into consideration, the user is able to step into the small margin behind one's own drawn sword and in front of the sword of one's opponent without fail, delivering a beyond Godspeed blow of monstrous power. It is because of this that the Amikaku Ryu no Haramki was the secret and most powerful technique of the Hitan Mitsurugi Ryu. En, with his supercharged reaction time, watched the blade slice through the air and was about to strike Kenshin when something inside of him snaps. I will not kill Ni-sensei, En roars in his mind. Hanten. Reversal. En yells as he twists his katana around and continues the strike, only not with the blade but with the back. The katana hits Kenshin across the chest and although it is not the blade, still causes a gash along his chest. A look of shock flashes across Kenshin's face before he looks at En before dropping to one knee. You spared me. Why? Kenshin says as falls, but En catches him and begins to bandage his wound with a first aid kit he had in a seal. I will not partake in this barbaric tradition, En says as he puts away Kokuryu back into its sheath. There cannot be two masters of Hitan Mitsurugi Ryu. So this one will forgo his life as a swordsman. Take my Sakabeto as a Genpaku gift. Kenshin says as he hands En the sword. En looks at it and sighs. Thank you, Ni-sensei. I'll make you proud. En says as he places the Sakabeto in his obi with Kokuryu as he would a daisho, a katana/wakizashi set. Visit me, this one will be peaceful for the rest of his life as someone else is carrying on my legacy. Goodbye, En-kun, Kenshin says as he bows and walks back inside of the temple, not looking back at his little brother. Goodbye, Ni-sensei, En says and walks away towards Kumagakuer, a weight lifted from his chest. Next day, 7 a.m. I did it. En yells as he jumps downstairs into the kitchen to see Pops, Beanie, Annie and Mabui in the kitchen. So Mabui, I was reading your notes and the second Raikage's notes about the Tenso no Jutsu, heavenly transfer technique, and how it couldn't be used in battle as you couldn't do the calculations in the middle of the battlefield. So I decided to take the challenge and I figured out the seal that connects to my brain that will automatically calculate the coordinates of where I want go. And I should be able to survive as Pops and Annie can, and I have the same durability as them. Just think about it. This technique is faster than my biological father's and the Raiten no Yoroi as it moves at the speed of light and it does not require markers, so if I perfect it, then I will be the fastest ninja ever. En proclaims and jumps around before he stops when he realizes something. Hey Mabui, why did you stay here overnight? En asks, causing her and A to turn red and begin sputtering while trying to come up with an excuse, but by that time En was across the room so fast the family had thought that he had perfected the technique already and was hugging Mabui hard. Yay! Mabui is now my real Nijin. En yells in pure happiness, failing to noticing the look of embarrassment on A and Mabui and Z and B falling off their chairs in laughter. Enough about us, you have 3 hours to train before you have to be at the academy for the team assignments. A says in an attempt to change the subject. You said US. En says and begins to do the people's eyebrow to A, who punches him across the face and sends him into the wall, making a crater that En slowly gets out of. "I'll be training," En says without looking at his family as he grabs his notes and his weapons and heads to the training grounds. Breakage training ground. So I do the ram sign and imagine a bolt of lightning in the place of the object. Then find out the coordinates of where you want it to go, and reads to himself as he looks at the kunai in front of him. "Let's see if this seal works," and writes as he pulls out a piece of seal paper that has the kanji for heaven, Tengoku, on it. The kanji, if you looked at it closely, was actually made of thousands of smaller Fuinjutsu formulas. It was truly a masterpiece. En places it on his shoulder right under his kanji for white and pushes chakra into it, tattooing the seal onto his body permanently. He focuses on the kunai and imagines the kunai being turned to lightning before imagining it being stuck in the tree. Suddenly he sees the coordinates in his head. "Tenso, heavenly transfer." En says, and suddenly there is a blue flash and the kunai is stuck in the tree. "I did it." En yells and begins to dance around in happiness while failing to notice footsteps behind him. "Are you planning on doing that with yourself?" Yugito says as she walks up to him. "Hey Yugi-chan. And to answer your question, yes," he says as he takes a few deep breaths and begins to think. That technique took about 1/15 his chakra, so he would not be able to use it often. Maybe this wouldn't make him better than his parents. "You seem tired. Did that technique use a lot of chakra?" Yugito asks with a puzzled look on her face. "They were Jinchuriki, almost nothing was too much chakra." "Not really, but it would after a while. After all, you are moving yourself with just your chakra," Naruto explains, which caused Yugito to once more have a puzzled look on her face. "It's not a Raiden Jutsu?" Yugito asks and receives a shake of his head from En, causing her to continue. "Why not use your white lightning to make the flash instead of pure chakra?" she says, causing En to ponder the idea. "That's brilliant. Thanks Yugi-chan." En yells and gives her a hug, causing her to blush. He then throws a kunai in the air. "Tenso," En says, and this time instead of a blue flash, there is a white one and the kunai is embedded into the wood. En feels his reserves again, and this time he felt almost no chakra used in the technique. "Thanks so much Yugi," En exclaims as he gives Yugito a kiss on the cheek before realizing what he did and jumps back blushing, but his reaction is nothing compared to Yugito. She is frozen with a blush so red a certain girl in Konoha would be in envy, and she kept shaking her head every 15 seconds like she was trying to get something out of her head, which, considering what Mutatabi was probably saying in her head, she most likely trying to get it out. "An. I would type it, but then this fic would be rated whatever was after MA. Yugi. Ya there?" En says as he waves his hand in front of her face, causing her to finally snap back to the real world. I'm going to go visit your family." "Gotta go," Yugito says with a crimson blush before she bolts at a speed that En is sure she has her own Jikoken Jutsu. "Oh okay. Bye," En says, but by that time she was gone. En sighs but gets ready for teleporting himself. Tenso. At the academy, 3 hours later. 4 out of the 5 members of the group was standing in front of the academy waiting for their last member. "Where is En?" Kara asks, and as soon as she does, there is a white flash and standing there is En with his arms crossed and a huge grin on his face. He looked so much like his biological father, the yellow flash with his blonde hair, blue eyes, white cloak, and maybe it was also the teleportation technique that caused a bright flash. "I figured it out. It's not fully combat ready like my father's, but I can use it to move around and use it in a pinch." En yells as he jumps up and down before looking at his friend's hands. All 4 of them had up 10 fingers, causing En to jump up and down even more and begin to do his happy dance. The 4 of them look at each other before Samui nods in understanding. "En. He got this jutsu so fast because his dream is to be faster than his father and his biological father, so if this is his way to be faster, I imagine he would jump at the chance." "Let's go," Samui says as she grabs En's ear and drags him into the academy against his will. "Academy. Okay, now that everyone is here," Oshiro says before sending a glare to En, who has a sheepish look on his face. "Team 1. Oshiro continues to say all of the teams, causing En to space out until he hears a name. "Team 13, En Yatsuki," Yugito ni Oshiro says, but gets interrupted by Yugito, who yells yes. Before continuing, "And Samui Hito." Samui does not jump up, but she does have a smirk on her face before looking at Yugito, who glares. The En fan club and Samui begin to groan as they are not on the team as En-kun and Samui-chan. "Okay, you have a month before missions with your teams begin. We would begin them immediately, however we would like to give you time to train and gain new skills before C-ranked missions. AN. Jinan duty ranked missions only for the first 2 weeks, then Julo C-ranked missions, begin. You are shinobi of Kumagakure and living representations of the will of lightning. Do not join the life of a ninja for glory or riches, as you will achieve nothing. Fight to protect your village, your family and friends. Dismissed." Oshiro preaches before dismissing them. "Gotta go talk to Pops, see ya guys." N yells, causing his friends to nod before his concentrates for a moment and flashes away to the Raikage Tower. Raikage Tower. Yo pops! N yells as he appears in a flash of white, causing his father to jump up and knock over his piles of paperwork. What the F $N? Z says as he sits back down and begins to pick up his paperwork, which was scattered all over the place. Yo pops, can I get Sonny and traveling rights? N asks, causing his dad to get a look on his face. I wanted to go traveling around the elemental nations before missions begin. I promise not to get caught in Konoha. Besides, Sami-chan and Yugi-chan can do D ranks without me, and explains with a mischievous smirk on his face, causing his father to sigh in defeat and signs the papers. See ya in a month and a half. N yells as he disappears in a white flash, causing Z to sigh again. That boy is going to be the death of me, Z thinks to himself before diving back into the sea of paperwork. 1.5 months later. I wonder how everyone improved. A young blonde man with a sleeveless black trench coat with red clouds with a high collar. He is wearing black onbu pants and a black tank top that looked like the sleeves were cut off, along with black shinobi sandals and a white Kumo headband. He had on large black headphones that appeared to be powered by chakra and was playing loud rock music. He also wore a modified white Kumo flak jacket that was more like a belt and had pockets that held scrolls and ninja scrolls. On his belt was a few loops that held several weapons. It held a black katana with the kanji for Ryu on the Saigo in white, and instead of having a normal pommel, it had a black dragon head. If the ninja was to draw the blade, he would have read the inscription, "Do not fight like a warrior, dance like a dragon," written in kanji. Hanging right next to the katana like someone would hang a wakizashi was a sakabeto in a black steel Saigo. On the back of his waist was 2 black steel tonfas that had multiple holes drilled into the sides, strapped in a X formation. Overall, he was quite the intimidating ninja, even if he was so young. I'm sure your friends have, if what you told us is true. The fangirls, however, I would bet my pocky that they did no training a teenage girl that was about a year older than the boy and was wearing something similar to him. She wore a black trench coat with red clouds as well, however she had long sleeves that covered her hands. She had long raven black hair down to her mid-back and dark black eyes that stared into your soul. Underneath her cloak she wore mesh armor that covered her C-cup breasts and hourglass figure, but if you looked you could see the 3-circle necklace that proved she was the heir of the Uchiha clan. I never understood your obsession with Pocky, Usagi, a long orange-haired girl with 2 black ring earrings on her ears, one on each of her earlobes and one on the side of her ear. She had a slim figure that most fangirls worked hard for but could never achieve, and B-cup breasts that was not bad for her 13-year-old body. She was wearing mesh armor and a black cloak with red clouds that ended at her ankles, showing her black shinobi sandals, showing her painted black nails. I wouldn't say that if I was you. After all, if we leave you near chocolate for even a minute, it will be gone and you will be complaining how you feel fat all day. A girl with blue hair in an open black cloak with red clouds says, causing the orange hair girl to pout, causing her to smile. She had an origami flower in her ear and was wearing black nail polish as well. She wore a navy blue shirt that held in her B-cups under her cloak, along with a skirt made out of white ribbons, along with a small medic's pouch that must have been expanded with fuinjutsu. Whatever a white-haired girl and boy say in unison before the girl glared at the boy, but the boy was too lazy to. The boy was about 3 years older than the blonde-haired boy and had short shaggy white hair along 2 red dots on his forehead. He had a black rope tied in a bow behind him and his cloak was black with red clouds like the rest of his group. However, his had almost no collar, had no sleeves below his elbow, and the back of his cloak was cut off. The girl had long white hair that went down to her lower back, however had no dots on her forehead like her brother. She wore her cloak around her waist, causing her top half to flap behind her. She wore a white tank top and white onbu pants that contrasted against her black cloak. She had C-cup breasts and an hourglass figure that, along with her white hair, made her very exotic looking. Whatever, ladies, Kimimaro, let's go. As they all shine, except for N, who flashed into the Raikage Tower. Raikage Tower. Yo pops! I'm back. N yells as he appears in his office, scaring Z and A, who is helping him with paperwork. Z and A look at N's new attire in admirement before noticing 4 unknown ninjas with him. Several bolt ninjas drop from their ceiling, causing N's friends to become tense. However, he holds his hand up to stop them from attacking. Everyone calm down. Pops, these are my friends and they want to join Kumo. N explains, causing Z to tense and think for a moment before flicking his hand, causing the bolt to leave. Okay, who are they and what's with the cloak? Asks as he puts his feet on his desk, which is now right next to his father's, considering that he was being groomed for the Raikage's position. This is Usagi Uchiha, one of the last 3 Uchihas in the world, N says before gesturing with his hands dramatically. A and Z flash each other a look of confusion when N said 3 Uchihas. As far as they knew, the only Uchihas left was Usagi and her brother Sasuke. Wait, the ninja who killed the entire Uchiha clan in one night? Z asks, causing Usagi to nod and throw a scroll to Z, who catches and opens it. He reads it and his eyes would make dinner plates jealous. Is this real? The village elders demand the killing of the Uchiha clan? And old man Sarutobi gave you a scroll which allows you to join any village. Fine, you can be a Jounin, Z says as he reads the scroll before pulling out a black Kumo Hyate and Jounin vest, causing her to bow to the Raikage. Next, we have Kei and Kimimaro Kaguya. They are the last of the Kaguyas and the last people in the elemental nations that can use Shikatsu-myaku. Kimimaro is S-ranked and Kei is high B rank, so you can place her on the team with Amoi and Kuren explains, causing everyone to nod in agreement except for Kei, who jumps up and drop kicks Sen in the face. I am higher than Jinan. No, you are not. Power-wise you are B ranked, but experience-wise and mentally, you are nothing but a high Jinan. Kimimaro scolds, causing Z to nod and hand them both headbands. Kei-san, please report later today for the team meetings, as says, causing Kei to nod and sigh before A gestures his hand to tell N to continue. Continuing on, this is Konan Uzumaki and Yuki. Pain Uzumaki, also known as the Angel and the Goddess, N explains before handing his family a bingo book open to their pages that showed that they were both A-ranked ninjas in the bingo books that were wanted in Iwa, Ado, and Kusa. You are both Jonin level, but for now you can be Jinan until the exams, says with a sigh before handing them both black Kumo headbands, which they take happily. I have a question. Why do they call you Pain? Z asks, causing N to snicker before Pain looks back to the Raikage. Because I am only as strong as I am now, because I have felt pain, she says before closing her eyes, and when she opens it, in her eyes was the Rinnegan. Z and A have a shocked look on her face, causing N to laugh and think about the first time he met Yuki. Flashback. N was sitting in a ridge in the middle of Kusa overlooking a river when he hears a rustle. He turns around to see two girls both wearing black cloaks with red clouds, one with long orange hair and one with short blue hair. The orange-haired girl is levitating mid-air over the ridge while the blue-haired girl is floating with wings coming out of her back that look much like it was made of paper. Who are you? The orange-haired girl asks as she looks at the cute blonde-haired boy. In her opinion, it is customary to give your name before asking for someone else's, Anne says without even looking at her as he look over the river. I am Pain, she says, causing Anne to smirk. In a flash, N is right behind her, standing on a platform of lightning with his face right next to hers, causing her to blush even though she was trying to suppress it. Oh, aren't you shy? But I'm sure you are wild behind closed doors. Sexy, N says, causing her to blush even more red before kicking N in the face. Kamiton Shuriken, paper release Shuriken, AN. I made Konan Shikigami no Mai into a bloodline. Kami can mean god or paper, and in this case, Kamiton is paper release, not god release. The blue-haired girl yells as she lifts her sleeves, causing multiple chakra-reinforced paper shuriken to fly out of it, but by that time, N was gone in a flash of white lightning. Oh, you're a masochist too, N says as she slaps her ass, causing her to erupt in a blush so red that she put a certain Hyuga heiress to shame. Pain looks at N in anger for embarrassing them before raising her right arm. Shinra Tensei. Pain yells, causing a shockwave of gravity chakra to erupt outwards towards N. N flashes 3 hand signs before holding his hands like his father used to when he performed his version of the technique. Tenso Dorai, transfer guiding thunder, a shield of white lightning appeared in front of him and blocked the wave of chakra, sending it into a tree nearby. Sorry ladies. I had fun, but it is time to end this, N yells as he charges his body with white lightning. Shirotan Dabura Shirahyo. White release double white leopard, N yells, and 2 leopards made of white lightning comes out of his body and leap at the girls. Suddenly 2 men appear in a sunshine. A red-haired man that appears to be an Uzumaki, however, has the Rinnegan, and orange-haired man. The Rinnegan user raises his hand and sucks in the chakra from the leopards. AN. Sayuki and Nagato have the Rinnegan, but Yahiko does not, however he still is IS-ranked shinobi. The reason why Yuki has it will be explained. You are strong. We are looking for members of our group, the Akatsuki, New Dawn. We are a mercenary group that take missions and fight the Hakume, Twilight. We fight for peace and the betterment of the ninja world. Would you like to join? The orange-haired one asks, causing N to think for a moment. Sure, what is your name? N asks after nodding. I am Heiwa, peace, and he is Ray, 0. The orange-haired man, now known as Heiwa, says before flipping N a ring like a coin. It was slate blue and it had the kanji for void or sky, and when N placed on his right index finger, it resized itself and glowed for a second. It has chosen you. You are now a true member of the Akatsuki. Let us go, Ray says before shining away. Heiwa grabs my shoulder and shines me away to their hideout, causing N to think to himself, this is going to change my life. Flashback end. So yeah, that's what happened. So you made fun of N, caused a Rinnegan user that you didn't know what it could do to become hot and bothered. That's the N that we know and love. You still haven't explained the cloak, says with a smile before asking the question. Oh, these are the signature cloaks of the Akatsuki. You can modify it any way you want though, so almost no one has the same designs. Besides that, everyone has a different ring that allows them to contact each other. N says before holding up his hand to show his void ring. Usagi shows her scarlet ring, Kimimaro his south ring, Konan her white ring and Yuki her jewel ring. Okay, you can stay at our compound, Z says before N scratches the back of his head. For a second, A and Z saw orange book inside his sleeve, but N quickly pushes it back into his sleeve after a dirty look from the girls. N turns around with a sheepish look on his face and looks like he was trying to think of something to change the subject. Hey Pop says, I am now clan head of the Uzumaki clan and Namikaze clan. AN. I know there is no such thing, but roll with it. I would like to get an Uzumaki Namikaze compound built, N says, causing his father to stop and think before nodding and writing a note. He attaches it to a messenger falcon with sends it away to most likely the best ninja carpenter in the village, Atsushi Miyamoto. So yeah, that's it, Pops, knee. I gotta go to the meeting. Sayonara. He says before flashing away. A raises an eyebrow before flashing a look to En's friends. How good is he with that jutsu? A asks, causing En's friends to laugh, as he didn't know that without a doubt that En was one of the strongest members of the Akatsuki only after Rei and Heiwa, also known as the S-ranked ninja, Suijing, the Shindo god of water. So good that he took out 200 Jonin and Chunin and wounded the Tsuchikage in a minute during a battle against Heiwa. He is the same speed as you guys, maybe faster if he pushes, and is only a little slower than his father. The only reason why he is not faster is because he doesn't have the experience like his father did, and his reaction time is slower, Usagi says with a smirk. After all, she was proud of her Naruto-kun. You guys fighting the Tsuchikage? And only left a month ago, Z asks with alarm and surprise. He was surprised as his son was now faster than him and would become the fastest ninja to ever live in a year tops. And once told, time doesn't run the same for someone who can move at the speed of light, Usagi says as she looks out the window with her Sharingan on looking for En. That's all I wanted to know. Here are your keys, you can stay at the compound before En's compound is made. The compound is about half a mile behind Raikage Tower. Dismissed, Z says with a wave of his hand, causing the group to nod and shine away before he turns around toward the window. He's become very strong. I wonder how much he has matured? Asks as he looks toward his father. You and Mabui just want some new sisters-in-law. Besides, you and B must have corrupted him with your Icha obsession. Maybe I should tell his girls and Mabui? Z says with a grin on his face and a full-blown booming laugh when he sees the look of horror on A's face. Still got it. Z says as he loved teaming his sons before looking back to his paperwork with a sigh. Meeting place. Yo, what's up guys? En says as he flashes to the training ground next to Samui, Yugito and a dark-skinned man with white hair. Daru is a fairly tall, dark-skinned man with a slightly bulbous nose, a lazy look in his eyes and shaggy, white hair which covers his left eye. He wears a high-collared, sleeveless uniform with loose-fitting pants, bandages on his wrists and the one strap over one shoulder flak jacket of a Kumagakure shinobi. Daru also has the kanji for water and lightning tattooed on his right and left shoulders respectively, denoting his chakras' nature affinities, water release and lightning release, as well as the fact that he has a Kekkei Genkai, the storm release. The tattoo on his left arm also signifies that he has inherited Z's black lightning. He carries a broad, foldable, cleaver-like sword, strapped to his back, when outside the village. En looks at Daru and holds out his fist, which Daru bumps. En smiles, but that quickly changed when he sees the pure demonic looks on the girls' faces as they begin to walk towards him with weapons in hands. Now ladies, there's no need for violence. En says as he slowly backpedals before flashing away when he sees them lunge at him, causing them to fall onto the spot where he was a second ago. You left without a trace for almost 2 months and left us with D ranks. Yugito yells before she begins to flash through hand signs. En jumps to stop her, but Samui was faster and lunges with her Tanto, which En blocks with his Sakabeto, but that distraction gave Yugito time to finish. Kaden, Nazumi Dama. Mouse hairball. Yugito yells before shooting out a piece of fur that is engulfed in blue flame at En flashes behind Daru, quivering and shaking. Daru ni, help me. En yells to his teacher, who sighs and holds up his hand to stop Samui from flashing through hand signs. Stop, Yugito, Samui. This is getting dull, Daru says, causing Samui and Yugito to calm down slowly. Now that we have stopped trying to kill each other, En says before stopping and sending a glare at the girls, causing Samui to draw her Tondo, causing him to whimper, and Daru to whisper. Whipped, causing En to grumble before looking at the Rampton. Storm release, user. Are we going to get a mission? En asks, causing Daru to think for a moment. I know that they have good teamwork and Yugito and Samui are strong enough for a C rank. En. I have no idea his power level, but it is easily my level, closer to his father and brothers, so we should be good. Daru thinks before nodding. We can head to Raikage-sama's office for a C rank, Daru says before getting ready for a sunshine, but stops when he sees Yugito hold up her hand. Hey En. Can you flash us there? Yugito says, causing N to shake his head. The stress put on the body would break several bones or rupture organs on a normal person. However, my family has extreme durability, which means when we use the technique, it doesn't even scratch our skin. The only way that anyone besides my family can use it is if they have a special seal, however it works once, etc. Yodaruni, why don't you ever try to use a Kuroi Kami Nari Shunshin or Raten no Yoroi? And explains before asking the question to the older brother figure. The Shunshin would work just like a normal Raten Shunshin, so there is no point, but in terms of the Raten no Yoroi, it would most likely be slower but would have greater defense and damage to the opponent, so I may have to try that. Daru says to N, causing N to nod before writing a couple notes for later. How's your Shirotan coming? Daru says as they decide not to Shunshin and for all of them to walk as to catch up. It's great but also sucks. It is by far one of the strongest elemental bloodlines in the nations, but since no one has ever had it, I have had to create my own techniques, or I have to use Kuroi Kami Nari techniques and reverse them, as Kuroi Kami Nari moves at half the speed of the normal lightning. Shirotan moves at twice the speed. But it is slowly coming together, and says, causing his team to think for a moment about how strong his bloodline was and how true he was when he said that the bloodline is one of the strongest in the elemental nations. Have you mastered your father's signature move, the Kuro Panza, Black Panther? Daru asks, knowing N had most likely not learned the high-B-ranked jutsu as they round the corner to the Raikage Tower. You mean the Shirohyo? White Leopard, N says with a smirk after watching the shocked look on Daru's face before opening the door of the Raikage Tower. Let's go see Pops, N says as they walk up the stairs and into the Raikage office. A has his feet on the table with his hands behind his head and a satisfied look on his face, while his father had 3 piles of paperwork on his desk and a hateful look on his face directed toward his eldest son. Raikage-sama, Bosu, A.N. In canon, Daru called A Bosu, which is boss if you couldn't guess. We would like to do a C-rank mission, Daru says, causing Z to nod and reach into his desk marked C ranks and pulls out a mission scroll that says wave on the side. You are to meet a man in Nami no Kuni in 2 days to give him protection against bandits and thugs. This mission should last about 3 weeks, so bring supplies for that time. Dismissed, Z says before gesturing for them to leave. Meet in front of the village in half an hour so we can set off in the hour. Dismissed. Daru says, causing his team to nod and disappear in Shunshine's, or in N's case, a flash. Raikage compound. N appears in a flash right inside of his room before he reaches for a scroll leaning against a wall before grabbing it and pushing chakra into it, causing a large poof and all of his supplies to come out on the floor. N then pushes chakra into his own seal on his wrist. Foon, seal. N says before all of the supplies disappear once more. Okay, I'm good. N nods and says to himself before walking out of his room into the living room to see his friends congregated there around a scroll and what looked like Pocky and chocolate. Yo guys, I have a 3-week mission, so I want you guys to avoid trouble and stuff. So yeah, good talk, N says, causing Usagi to walk up to him and whisper in his ear, be careful N-kun, before giving him a big kiss. K. Yuki and Konan give him a hug and tell him to be okay, while Kimimaro just gives him a nod before diving back to his research about one of the secret techniques of the first Kaguya clan head. After talking to all of his friends and saying his goodbyes, he hears an angry cough and turns to see Yugito and Samui there with demonic look on their faces. You leave for a month and you have already hooked up with 4 hussies. Yugito yells, causing En and Kimimaro to facepalm, but by then Kei and Yuki were set off. Hussies. You're the ones dressed like a bunch of sluts. Yuki yells, causing Samui to hug her breasts defensively and Yugito get even more upset. You're one to talk, you bondage-loving bimbo. Yugito yells, causing Yuki to suck in a shocked breath before lunging, beginning a catfight. N. Usagi, she doesn't care what anyone said about her, and Kimimaro, suddenly the scroll wasn't as interesting as something else. Sit down on some chairs and eat the Pocky and chocolate as they watch all the girls roll around on the floor, which N must admit is quite sexy. This continues for 5 minutes before N looks down at his watch before noticing that they had to meet Daruni in 5 minutes. Guys, we gotta go. N yells before kissing the 4 girls and giving Kimimaro a fist bump before leaving in a flash, causing Samui and Yugito to sigh before shining away, but not before sending a glare towards the other girls. Gates of Kumagakoer. Yo Daruni. Sorry I was almost late. The girls will be here in about 10. 9. 8. 7. 6. 5. 4. 3. 2. Wham! N says before counting down, but couldn't finish because Samui appeared in a shunshine and slugs him across the face. Leaving us was not cool, she says as she crosses her arms in frustration. Yugito appears in a few seconds, causing Daru to nod. Okay, let's go before this gets dull, Daru says, and was about to take off but stops when N holds up his hand and pulls out 3 seals from his seal tattoos. I mentioned about those seals that allow me to flash you, and here they are. It would take about 2 weeks to get to Nami no Kuni, but we could flash there in the speed of light. Just place it onto a piece of bear skin and push chakra into it, En says before handing them to his team. Daru places it on his arm, Yugi-ito places it on her stomach, and Samui, much to her amusement and En's despair, places it on her inner thigh. Okay, everyone hold hands and get ready, En says, which causes them to nod and do as he says. Ready, go. En yells as they all turn to light and disappear, only to reappear in Nami no Kuni instantly. Nami no Kuni. Team 13 appears in a flash of light on the edge of a lake right outside of a scene of a battle, even if a bit one-sided. The battle was between Sharingan no Kakashi and the Kirigakure no Kijin, Zabuza Momochi, and it was obviously that although Kakashi was a high A rank and Zabuza was only a low A rank, Kakashi had been slacking in this time of peace, and as such, Zabuza was wiping the floor with him. Team 13 then looked to see a clone of Zabuza fighting and beating a group of Jinin, and from how weak it was, they knew it was a water clone, which made it even more pathetic that they were losing. The first one was a boy about Naruto's height. He had black hair that looked like a duck's ass in the back. His onyx black eyes were watching the battle that was taking place intently. He had on a blue high-collared shirt that had what appeared to be a red and white fan on the back, with white shorts. On his right thigh was his shuriken holster, and he had a pack on the back of his right hip along with white arm warmers. What caught their attention though was the headband he had on. It was the symbol of Konoha. Oh shit, Konoha, this complicates things. I just hope Naruto will be alright, thought Daru as he looked at his little brother. His teammates must have had similar thoughts because Kuro put her hand on his shoulder for support, while Yugi-ito moved and wrapped her arm around him and laid her head on his shoulder, hoping to keep him calm. The second Jinin was a kunoichi, but even from her appearance they could tell she was weak. She had long pink hair and had her headband tied on top of her head, keeping her hair back. She wore a red short-sleeved dress that went down to her knees and opened on the sides to allow mobility. Underneath she wore black skin-tight shorts and had her shuriken holster on her right thigh. The last member of the team was another kunoichi, and like the first she looked weak. She had long blonde hair that was up in a ponytail that reached her waist. She wore a two-piece purple outfit, with bandages wrapped around her thighs and midsection. She had arm warmers on and had her shuriken holster on her right thigh like her teammates. She wore her headband like a belt around her midsection. She was currently shaking while she watched the battle that was unfolding. Her pink-haired friend wasn't doing any better. Zabuza and Kakashi both jump at each other at Jonin-level speeds and meet in the middle with weapons out. Hako Chakra 2, White Light Chakra Saber, versus Kubi Karabocho. However, Zabuza's superior strength pushes Kakashi back, causing him to backflip and land before looking directly at Team 13. You can come out now, Kakashi says towards them, causing the team to sigh and jump down from their vantage point. Zabuza takes a good look at them before frowning and thinking to himself, that's Susanoo no Daru. I can't defeat a S-rank shinobi and a low A-rank shinobi at the same time, even with Haku. Why are you here, Daru? En? Zabuza says, causing Kakashi to look at En in shock. Name that begins with N, blonde hair, blue eyes, 3 whiskers on each cheek. It's Naruto. We were hired by Tazuna to protect him, but apparently he hired Konoha as well, Daru explains, causing everyone to look at Tazuna, who looks embarrassed. No matter. You will all die. Zabuza yells and goes to slice Daru in half, but is stopped by En, who blocks Kubi Karabocho with Kokuryu and pushes Zabuza back, giving him time for Yugi-ito to flip through some hand signs and for En to do a half-ram sign. Kaden, Karyuenden. Yugi-ito yells, sending a large dragon-shaped stream of blue fire which causes Zabuza to use Kubi Karabocho as shield to block the attack. However, the blue flame still sent him flying backwards from the fire. Hiryo. Flying Dragon. En yells and activates his own version of the Hien, Flying Swallow, to extend Kokuryu to the length of a Nadachi. En then charges Raiden Chakra into his lower body and jumps 10 feet into the air directly over Zabuza, who is still disoriented from Yugi-ito's attack, and drops with the lightning-charged Kokuryu in a two-handed swing. Ryutsuzan. En yells and tries to cut straight through Zabuza, however his strike is blocked by Zabuza's Kubi Karabocho, but it still managed to cut straight through the blade, leaving Zabuza with only a little more than half of his blade. Everyone except En's team looks at En in shock at the amount of power he held. How does he have so much power? I must have that power to kill her, Sasuke thought to himself as he clenched his fists and glared at En. You're good, kid, I'll admit. You're way too good to be a Jinin, so who are you? Zabuza questions, causing En to fix his Akatsuki cloak and look Zabuza in the eyes with a smirk. I have many titles. The Nine-Dime Hitakiri Badosai, Shidusha no Akatsuki, En. This means leader of the dawn, and this does mean that En is the leader of the Akatsuki, but rather he is the vanguard or one of the strongest members that would lead their group to victory. Kami no Senko, God of the Flash, En. He is the fastest man alive, however not the fastest man ever, as he is not faster than his father yet. I am Enyatsuki Namikaze, or as you may know me better as Raijin, says with a foxy grin, causing Zabuza and Kakashi to look shocked but for different reasons. Zabuza was in shock that one of the strongest up-and-coming ninjas was here in front of him and was his enemy. Kakashi was shocked that his little brother was a S-ranked ninja. But one person was in pure rage, and his name was Sasuke Uchiha. Sasuke had read the bingo books and had learned about this Raijin and how he was the youngest S-ranked ninja ever at the age of 12. But more importantly, he learned how he dated his sister. He was not being protective, but rather the fact that En was one of the only people in the nations that knew the current whereabouts of Usagi. No matter, you will still die, Zabuza says as he rushes through 18 hand seals before ending on Bird Suten, Daibakufu no Jutsu. Zabuza yells and shoots water from his mouth, which becomes a giant wave and surges toward En. En breathes and grabs his right wrist. He places it in front of him and begins to charge Shirotan chakra into it until it is visible. The move looks reminiscent to the Chidori and Reikiri that Kakashi was known for, but everyone could tell it was several times more dangerous. Face my signature move, Tonbagiri. En yells as he uses Tenso to appear 5 feet from the wave and stabs his Tonbagiri into it. For a second there was nothing until suddenly there was a 25-foot hole in the wave and everything behind it, sending Zabuza into a tree. Everyone looked in shock as none of Team 13 had ever seen En in true combat and Team 7 had never seen power of that level. I need that to kill her, Sasuke yells in his head. The wave dispersed, causing En to flash back to where Zabuza was laying unconscious. He pulls out Kokuryu to end it when 2 Senbons fly through the air and strike Zabuza in the neck, killing him. En reaches out and checks Zabuza's pulse to feel none, but then noticing where the Senbon struck, causing him to sigh. Aoinen, Hunter Nin, appears, causing En to look at her. She was wearing the standard Kirigakure pinstriped outfit which stopped at her knees. Over this she wore a green haori with white trimmings, and around her waist a brown sash with a fringed trail wrapped around her waist twice. She also had a white Kirioinen mask that had a red wave design that covered most of her eyes, but En could tell she was looking at him. Thank you for wounding him enough for me to kill him. I will dispose of the body somewhere where the Jonan won't have to watch. Good day, the Oinen says as she grabs the body and slings it over one of her shoulders and was about to shunshine when En stops her. See you in about a week's time, En says, causing the Oinen to become scared and disappear quickly in a shunshine. En turns around to the 2 teams to see them confused. What was that about? Samui asks, causing En to shrug. That Oinen was a fake and an accomplice to Zabuza. She used senbon, which are rarely deadly unless hitting a vital area, and when I felt where the senbon hit, I felt that it was non-vital and it would place the victim into a pseudo-death state. As such, Zabuza is still alive and will be back in a week or so, En explains in what his friends in Kumo say is his lecture mode. Both teams nod in understanding, although Sasuke is enraged that some no-name from Kumo had such power and noticed something that he, an elite Uchiha, did not. Kakashi suddenly falls over, causing everyone to tense up, but Samui activates some Iryonin jutsu and checks Kakashi before looking back at the group. Don't worry, it's cool. Just chakra exhaustion. He should be good in a couple of hours, Samui says, causing the teams to nod except for the fangirls who are enraged. After all, Samui was strong, cool, pretty, but most importantly, she had a large chest that all of the fangirls wanted but none of them had. I guess since we will be doing this mission together that we should head to Kazuna's house, Daru says, causing everyone to nod and for Sasuke to sling Kakashi over his shoulder as he didn't trust the Kumonin before they all begin walking. Tazuna's house. They had walked to Tazuna's home and had been greeted by Tazuna's beautiful daughter and grandson. They had sat down and eaten in silence until Kakashi had woke up a couple hours later and asked them to all go into the woods and into a large clearing. Okay, since we are working together in this mission, I think we should get to know each other. My name is Kakashi Hitake, or Sharingan no Kakashi, A-rank Jounin of Konohagakure no Sato. Kakashi says with a bit of arrogance in his voice before gesturing to his pink-haired fangirls. Sakura Haruno, Jounin of Konohagakure no Sato. Sakura says without looking at the Kumonin. Not that they care. Ino Yamanaka, heiress of the Yamanaka clan and Jounin of Konohagakure no Sato. Ino says with a similar look to her pink-haired banshee of a rival. Sasuke Uchiha, last of the almighty Uchiha clan and Jounin of Konohagakure no Sato. Sasuke says with arrogance overflowing and looking at them like they should care. Daru of the Black Lightning, sensei of Team 13 and S-ranked elite Jounin of Kumagakure no Sato. Daru says as he checks his cleaver blade for chips or dents. Samui Hito, B-ranked Jounin of Kumagakure no Sato. Samui says with her usual cool look on her face. Yugito ni, B-ranked Jounin of Kumagakure no Sato. Yugito says as she checks her nails. Enyatsuki Namikaze Uzumaki, S-ranked Jounin of Kumagakure no Sato, and says as he cleans his katana and sakabeto with powdered limestone. There is no more name cases after our Yondaime Hokage, and if there was, why would he be in Kumo? You just want to impress me, so I'll go out with you. Sakura screams at such a pitch that nearby birds explode and En and Yugito to roll on the floor in pain from their enhanced hearing. What the hell was that? Kurama yells inside of En's head. Morning Kurama. Let me guess, the banshee woke you up? En says to his partner, causing En to grunt in agreement. First of all, I do not want to go out with you. I have my girls and they love me for me, not because I am the heir to a dozen different legacies, En says as he places his arms around Yugito and Samui, causing them to blush and for Kakashi to start giggling pervertedly behind his ever-present Icha book. I am the son of the Yondame Hokage, Minato Namikaze and the aka no Shi, Kushina Uzumaki. I was asked to be adopted by the family of the Raikage and I was, which is why I have lived happily in Kumo, which I doubt I would have in Konoha, and explains before sending a look towards Kakashi, who sighs as it would most likely be true considering that Konoha hated their Jinchuriki more than any other village. Why wouldn't you have a good life in Konoha? You are practically royalty. Ino asks the question his team had been wondering. Do you know what a Jinchuriki is? And asks, which they shake their heads in response. A Jinchuriki or power of human sacrifice is someone who has a Baiju sealed within them. My father never killed the Kyuubi as you cannot kill a Baiju and instead sealed him within me. Most Baijuis hate being sealed, but some Jinchuriki manage to become friends and partners with their Baiju and become exponentially stronger as a team. But the point is that Jinchuriki are hated everywhere except for Kumo due to the fact that several members of the Raikage's family are Jinchuriki, including myself, and the fact that we have done great service to our village. So in Kumo, I would find happiness unlike Konoha, and explains, causing everyone to become silent as they take it all in. You should give your Baiju to Sasuke. He deserves it more than you. Sakura yells, causing everyone to give her the "are you mentally retarded" look, even Kurama. How about we do some spars so we know where we are all at skills wise? How about for the first match, Samui vs Sakura, Kakashi says in an attempt to break the silence. Samui and Sakura walk up to a circle in the clearing. Daru makes sure both members are ready and waves his hand in the Hajime motion. Sakura rushes forward and tries for a sloppy left jab. Samui stays in her place and only moves her head to the side and then punches Sakura in the stomach, causing Sakura to slump forward and pass out. Kakashi grabs her and pulls her to the side with a sigh on how weak she was. Winner Samui. Next, Yugito vs Ino, Kakashi says, causing the two blondes to go into the circle. Hajime, Daru says before jumping out of the way. Ino attempts to use her clan's mind jutsu, but Yugito moves out of the way of the blast and rushes to Ino's right. Yugito, although only having 2 feet between the two of them, uses her extreme flexibility and does an almost vertical side kick to Ino's face, knocking her out as well. Once again, Kakashi grabs his student in shame and wakes her and her pink counterpart with smelling salts. Lastly, Naruto Uzumaki and Sasuke Uchiha, Kakashi says, and Sasuke jumps into the ring however and does not move. My name is En Yatsuki, that is the name I was given as a child and that is the name I go by, En says darkly to Kakashi, who just sighs. What have they done to you, Naruto? He thinks to himself. En Yatsuki vs Sasuke Uchiha, Kakashi says, causing En to come into the circle. Hajime, Daru says, and once again jumps back, although a little further this time as he knew the damage En could cause. Sasuke jumps back and begins to flash through hand seals at a quick speed, for a Jinan, Kaden, Gokaku no Jutsu. Sasuke yells and sends a 5-foot diameter sphere of fire at En, who looks at it unimpressed. En draws his Sakabeto and does a vertical swing, creating a gust of wind that when it hit the fireball, caused it to disperse. I am dating your sister and that is one of her favorite techniques, so don't you think I know how to stop it? Besides, you cannot even hold a candle to her, En says as he puts away his Sakabeto. Where is she? Sasuke yells as he runs forward with a kunai in blind rage as he tries to kill En. En just waits until the blade is less than a foot away and sidesteps, sending Sasuke off balance while charging his right index finger with Shirotan Chakra. You will never get your revenge on her when I am around. You are weak and insignificant compared to us because your hatred is not strong enough, En says before striking a pressure point on Sasuke, knocking him out instantly. En turns around and walks away toward his team, ignoring the screams of hate from the fangirls. What was that about? Yugito asks, causing En to look at her blankly before shifting back to his normal look. I was just doing a favor for Usagi, who asked for me to tell him that. En explains, causing Daru to nod as he knew about Usagi's plan. Let's go train, En says as they leave just as Sasuke begins to wake up. Next day, En had avoided all of Team 7 despite Sasuke's attempts to fight him and Kakashi trying to get him to come to Konoha, but today, En would have to see them as Kakashi asked for group training. Both teams met in the same clearing as before and the tension was high. Sasuke hated En and his fangirls were glaring at En because Sasuke-kun was. Yugito and Samui were glaring right back as if to dare them to attack En. En however could care less and was ready a level 10 Fuin Jutsu book, the level of his biological parents. Okay, So we will be doing tree climbing, Kakashi says, causing the team from Kumo to sweat drop. Even Daru. You took them on AA ranked mission and you have never done tree climbing, Daru asks in disappointment, causing Kakashi to scratch the back of his head. We have mostly been doing teamwork exercises, Kakashi says while looking at his team to see Ino and Sakura fighting over something, most likely Sasuke, before stopping and glaring at each other. Sakura is the first to snap out and take in what her sensei had said. But sensei, we can already climb trees, Sakura asks, causing En to smirk as Yugito had said the exact same thing and Oshiru had said what En would bet his ramen, Kakashi would say, but can you do it without your hands? Kakashi says, causing En's smirk to go into full-blown grin. Kakashi places one foot over the other and begins to walk vertically up the tree. The Konoha Jinnan had huge looks of shock on their face but then noticed that the Kumo Jinnan were not impressed. My team has already done this and water walking as they teach it in the final year of the academy. We'll go practice some elemental ninjutsu over there, Daru says before his team walks off, but not before seeing the look of hate Sasuke sent at them. Nearby clearing, Team 13 stops in a clearing right off of a nearby lake surrounded by trees when Daru stops in front of them. Okay, so Samui, I'm going to show you a B-rank jutsu. Daru says, causing the usually stoic Samui to smile. Daru then flashes through 17 hand seals before ending on Tori. Bird. Raiten, rare jutsu. Lightning release, lightning dragon. Daru yells and a dragon erupts from the ground and hits a tree, causing it to shatter from the force and for the firewood left over to spark with electricity. Samui now has a full-grown grin and after memorizing the hand seals, walking to the other side of the clearing to practice. Okay, Yugito. I don't know any katen jutsus that you don't know, so I am sure that Mutatabi has some training for your Goka, Hellfire, Jutsu, Daru says, causing Yugito to blank out for a second as she talks to her partner before nodding and walking away. En was about to talk to Daru when Kurama asks him to enter the mindscape. I gotta go for a second, Daru be back in a little bit, En says, causing his big brother figure to nod in understanding before walking to help Samui and Yugito. En sits down Indian style and enters his chamber. En enters his mindscape and finds himself standing inside of the cave in the middle of a forest that his partner called home. En walks up to the huge fox and jumps on his head before scratching behind his ear. So what's up, Kurama? En asks as he sits down on his partner's head. I was going through your genetic code to see what kind of damage I have done to you when you tried to use my chakra last month, and I found something interesting. It appears that I have passed one of my abilities to you, an ability that has never been passed to any of my Jinchuriki before. Every Baijuu when our father created us received a few abilities that the Ju-Ubi had, like how Shukaku has the power over Suna, sand. I received the ability to sense negative emotions and the ability to control golden flames. And when you used my chakra, you accidentally received a katen affinity and the ability to use my gold flames. All of my Jinchuriki who can control my chakra can use it, but no one before you has tried. An. Think the flames from Nine-Tailed Chakra mode and Kurama mode, Kurama explains, causing En to nod as he takes in everything. So how are they different from normal flames? En asks, causing Kurama to smirk as he knew En would freak out when he told him, you know Amaterasu? The supposedly highest form of fire release? Well, it's not. The Kagetsuchi and Kinten jutsus can burn through all known substances including Amaterasu. Kurama explains, causing En to jump off his head and run around yelling, yeah. Thanks Kurama, gotta go practice. En yells with a wave and exits the mindscape. Okay, I'll try it. En says before giving Kurama a scratch behind the ear and leaving the mindscape. Daru sees En open his eyes and walks over to him. So what did Kurama say? Daru asks, causing En to look him in the eye before looking at his teammates. Kurama gave me an ability to try, but when I try a jutsu, it will at least to be A rank, so I want you guys to take cover. En says, causing Daru to nod in understanding. Last time En had tried a rank jutsu he had created, Kumo was missing a training ground. En watches his team shine away, causing him to use his bioelectricity ability to feel that the rest of his team was over 300 feet away and Team 7 was 400 feet away, so they should be okay. I remember a powerful B-ranked katen jutsu that original user made us ranked and you could as well, Kurama says and tells En the hand seals. En faces the clearing and breaths before flashing 2 hand seals. Tora, Uma, tiger, horse, En says in his head before taking a deep breath. Kinten go Kameka Yaku. Gold release great fire annihilation. En yells and spews out a huge tidal wave of golden flames at the trees. The flames were at least 75 feet high and at least 500 feet across, and when they touched the trees, caused them to erupt into flames and burn to ashes in seconds. Sensei. En yells, causing Daru to jump out, both of them flashing through hand seals. Suten Daibakushi Shoha. Water release great exploding water colliding wave. They yell in unison and spew out enormous amounts of water that sweep over the area. The water knocks over the trees but does not quench the flames, causing En to remember that they couldn't be quenched normally. En then stands in front of everyone and holds out of his palm toward the flames. Kunki, quench, En says while performing a crushing motion with his hand. The golden flames instantly respond to their master's wishes and disappear, causing En to turn around and look at everyone. I'll be Raikage one day, Daruni En says before falling forward, but not before Samui appears in a sunshine and catches En before he hits the ground. What power? Ino says, causing En's team to nod. Sasuke was once again glaring at En in true hatred. In his head he was thinking, he is some no-name from Kumo while I am a elite Uchiha and I do not have that power. I need that power. He could be without a doubt the strongest ninja to ever live, Daru says, causing Kakashi to nod, but inside he was thinking. He is so strong, not to mention the fact he is the heir to the Uzumaki and Namikaze clan. If I get him back to Konoha, Konoha would have 2 new bloodlines, the Kyuubi and the last of 2 strong clans. I must convince him that Kumo is evil and Konoha is his true home. We should take him home to rest. With the Kyuubi, he should be up and running in about 45 minutes, Yugito says, causing his team to nod and disappear in sunshine. Let's continue training. Zabuza will be back in about a week, Kakashi says, causing his team to sigh and continue their training until they could climb the tree repeatedly. That night, both teams had finished training after En had woke up from the chakra exhaustion. Each person had had limited success. Samui could not do the Raryu technique perfectly as she could only get a dragon about 10 feet tall, unlike the usual 20. Yugito could perform her Anaton Goken no Ken, Demon Release Blade of Hellfire, with concentration. However, once she had it activated, she could keep it up for 10 minutes at most. En and Kurama decided that he needs to practice his Katen affinity, but not here, just in case something goes wrong. So he had worked on his Denso no Jutsu by having his clones throw kunais randomly, and he had to flash to the location, catch them and then throw it somewhere else for him to catch later. If anyone saw his training, they would have been temporarily blinded by the repeated flashes of white light. Everyone was exhausted and Tsunami had called them for dinner. Everyone sat around a table that took up a majority of the medium-sized dining room. On one side of the table was Team 7 along with Tsunami and her son, Inari, while on the other side of the table was Team 13 and Tazuna himself. So I have managed to decrease my reaction time by 0.0003 seconds today, but not fast enough to perform the Tenso-san no Dan, Heavenly Transfer third step, En says to Daru, who nods in understanding but raises a question to the Konohanin and Tazuna's family. What is the Tenso-san no Dan? And how fast is your reaction time? Kakashi asks, causing En to smile as that was a point of pride for him. My current reaction time is 0.0007 seconds, 1/10 of a millisecond slower than my father, who had a reaction time of 0.0006 at his time of death. As for the San no Dan, I can't tell you just in case of battle between Konoha and Kumo, but let me just tell you, if I can complete that level of the Tenso, I will be the fastest man in history, and explains, causing everyone except for Daru to look at him in shock, as he was only 13, but he was most likely the fastest man alive and was striving to be the fastest man in history. You should teach Sasuke-kun that technique. Sakura says, causing everyone to once again hold their ears in pain. You must admit, she is quite devoted. Kurama says, causing En to mentally nod in agreement. First of all, the Tenso no Jutsu is my signature technique and a village secret. I would not enter Konoha and ask for Uchiha clan secrets, would I? En says as he eats his food. Sakura looks like she was about to respond, but Sasuke beat her to it. Like you could even use the techniques. You don't have the Sharingan, Sasuke says with arrogance, and thinks, that should put this stubby in his place. Well, neither do you, En says, causing Sasuke to stand up and was about to attack the young Yotsuki, but Kakashi calms him down. But even if I taught you the technique, you would die from using it. The user's body will be ripped apart if they are not members of the Yotsuki family. We are the fastest ninjas in the elemental nations, although for different reasons, En explains to the Konohanin, causing Sasuke to become upset, but it is surprisingly Inari who is the most angry. Why do you care about these techniques and stuff so much? You are still going to die against Gato. He's too strong, and you guys come here from your comfy little villages without knowing suffering. Inari yells, causing everyone to sigh at his naivety. Are you done yet? Now that you have stopped bitching, you should know that we are all shinobi, even that pink-haired banshee over there, and shinobi know suffering better than anyone. I am what people call a demon, and I have persecuted along with Bini and Yugi-chan for the first parts of our lives. Do you know what's like to be glared at like you are not human? To be treated as if no one loves you? I get it, you lost your father figure, but if you keep wallowing in your hate and pain, then you will go nowhere, and your father's sacrifice will be for naught. So get off your emo ass and wake up. En begins to rant, causing Inari to tear up and run away to his room. En stops for a moment before standing up from his chair. Thank you for the food, Tsunami-chan. It was delicious, N says before walking out the door, causing Sakura to stand up. "And Baka, come back here and apologize." Sakura screams, causing Daru to put a hand on her shoulder, causing her to flinch. "Don't worry about him, he is probably doing something he calls destructive therapy. He should be back soon. I wouldn't get him if I were you, or the results wouldn't be pretty. Considering the last person who did that, let's just say his injuries weren't dull," Daru says, causing everyone to sigh, ignoring his use of the word dull. With N, in a clearing in the woods. "Don't, no," suffering N mumbles to himself, punching a tree every time he says a word. "Shirotan Raten no Yoroi," N whispers under his breath, causing an aura of white lightning to appear around him. He takes a deep breath before uppercutting the tree to his right, sending it into the air before charging his arm with white lightning. "Tonebagiri," N yells before jumping above the tree, causing it to shatter and rain the clearing in a shower of sawdust. "I have to be faster," N says as he turns off his Raten no Yoroi before flashing away, ready to lower his reaction time by that 0.0001. The next day, N wakes up to sound of a single branch breaking, causing him to look up to a beautiful-looking girl entering the clearing. "Good morning," N says, causing the girl to jump as she did not know that N was awake. "Good morning, my name is Haku," Haku says, causing N to sit up and notice she is the same girl that pretended to be Oinen. She carried herself the same way and had gave off the exact same pheromones as the Oinen that had helped Zabuza. "Hi, name's En Yatsuki," N says, causing her to suck in air in shock. "As in the Raijin," she says before almost kicking herself, however she manages to keep a straight face. I am guessing that I am famous even with the civilian world," N says as he scratches the back of his head, ignoring the look of disbelief on Haku's face that N believed her. "Yes, everyone has heard of the fastest man alive. So what are you doing here, N Sama?" Haku says as she sits next to N. "Call me N. I was training last night to lower my reaction time and I guess I fell asleep." "What about you, Haku-chan?" N asks, causing her to blush when he said Haku-chan, but remembers he is the enemy and that she has to come up with an excuse for her being in the woods. "I'm looking for herbs for my friend who isn't feel well," Haku says, causing N to grin to himself. "So Zabuza's still not feeling great? Well, you did put him into a near-death state so he wouldn't be up and running for a bit," N says, causing Haku to suck in her breath in shock before pulling out a senbon, ready to throw it if he attacked her. "Don't worry, I won't attack you. In fact, I thought we could become allies. I am the son of the Raikage and I can guarantee you and Zabuza spots as ninja of Kumo. No more running from Oinen, no more bad conditions. I can even guarantee that you won't have to join the CRA. You don't have to tell me anything now, but tell Zabuza that I am sure that Gato will double-cross you." Johnny N explains to Haku, who nods in understanding before he leaves in a flash of white light. "Tazana's home." "I'm back," N yells as he walks inside of the house to see everyone eating breakfast. "Good morning, Naruto," Kakashi says, but flinches when N glares at him. "What have they done to you, Naruto?" Kakashi thinks to themselves, not realizing that the obvious answer was that they helped him find happiness. "My name is En Yatsuki," N says harshly, causing Kakashi to sigh. "Was those flashes yesterday you?" Daru asks in attempt to change the subject but only starts up Sakura. "That was you. I could barely sleep last night because of that." Sakura screeches, causing N to shrug. "My bad, I was trying to train to get stronger." "Hey Sakura, when was the last time that you trained outside of the academy?" N says, causing Sakura to shake and rage as N was right, she hadn't trained since she passed the academy as Kunoichi of the year. "Let's go train." "N. If you would," Daru says, causing N to nod and form a cross-shaped seal with his pointer and middle fingers. "Shirotan Kage Bunshin no Jutsu," N says, causing 5 clones to appear, causing a shock look for the Konoha Nin. Sasuke was red in frustration as this kid his age was one of the strongest ninjas in the world, could create copies of himself to fight for him, and was one of the few people who knew where his sister was. "Okay, one of you goes with Tazuna to the bridge and you 4 go scout the area." And causing his clones to nod before 4 disappears in flashes of lightning. "Are those Kage Bunshin? How many can you make?" Kakashi asks, causing N to laugh at how naive Kakashi was. "I can make about a couple hundred normally, but if I make them with white lightning which uses my chakra combined with real lightning, I can make tens of thousands that all explode with an explosion of lightning that is equal to the force of 10 explosive tags." N explains, causing everyone except his team who knew this look in pure shock and in Kakashi's face horror. "Naruto is an S-ranked shinobi and he can make thousands of clones of himself. Kumo practically has its own army just in him. I must get him to Konoha. In fact, Tazuna-san, I can send a couple hundred clones as workers. They don't know what to do, but with a little instruction, they can be helpful," N says, causing Tazuna to light up like the 4th of July before nodding vigorously. "Okay, then let's go train to fight Zabuza," Kakashi says, causing N to laugh a bit to himself. "About that, I kinda offered Zabuza and Haku asylum in Kumo," N says while scratching the back of his head sheepishly. "What? Everyone including Tazuna and Tsunami shout out in unison, causing En to slip into lecture mode. They are the enemy. They must die. Sakura yells, causing En to sigh and change his song before looking at Sakura with a bored look on his face. And I bet that you are the one who is going to take down a high A-ranked shinobi and his B-ranked apprentice. You will never survive in the shinobi world with that mindset. The enemy of my enemy is my friend. Besides, they would be great additions to Kumo's forces. Zabuzai is an A-ranked shinobi and wielder of one of the 7 swords of Kiri, while Haku is a wielder of Hyotan and as head of 2 clans in Kumo. As such, I have the authority to offer Nin asylum as long as the Raikage allows, so En says in a tone appropriate to his status as member of the council. I forgot you could do that. So now what? Yugito says as she sometimes forgets that En is a S-ranked ninja and member of the Kumo Shinobi Council. We should still train. I believe that Gato is going to backstab, which means we have to take down Gato and whoever he hires to attack us. Kakashi, I'm guessing that your team hasn't mastered the tree climbing exercise, so they should work on that while our team should practice elemental manipulation, and says, causing everyone to nod except for Sasuke, who is upset once more. He must be strong because of his teacher. Kakashi-sensei is useless and has only now taught us this, but they have already been taught this by their sensei. His sensei should be honored to teach in Uchiha. Let's go before this gets dull, Daru says before his team disappears in a sunshine to their favorite clearing. A week later. A week has passed since En had told his team about Zabuza and Haku, and much had happened. Zabuza through Haku had told him that they agreed but that they would spar on the bridge to trick Gato, so everyone trained to get stronger. Samui was finally able to correctly preform the Raiten, rare jutsu, but could only do it 2 times before becoming fatigued. Yugito could perform the technique that Mutatabi showed her. The Onotan Goku no Ken, AN. Think Chidori, but instead of lightning, imagine blue fire, but needed 5 seconds of concentration to control the flames, causing her enemies an opening to attack her. En could now easily perform Tenso ni no Dan, Heavenly Transfer second step. After updating his Heaven Seal matrix on his arm, however, he could only perform the first 5 movements of the Tenso San no Dan, Heavenly Transfer third step, before he has to stop. Daru had been trusted with the secrets of the Raiten no Yoroi along with the Kuroi Kaminari when he was training with his sensei, Z, but had never thought to combine them. He had to slow down the current of his Raiten no Yoroi until it became the consistency of Kuroi Kaminari, and suddenly Daru was covered in black lightning. It worked just like how he speculated before with how he moves slower than Bosu's, but when En punched him when it was on, En was instantly paralyzed for 10 seconds. Not to mention the increase of defense as he was able to slow down En's no Sensupin enough to block it without injury. Kakashi's team however did not leap as far as Daru's team. Sakura and Ino were able to easily do the tree climbing exercise, however could not do it more than 4 times before almost passing out due to chakra exhaustion, while it took Sasuke 5 days to figure it out as he refused to ask for help. Sasuke had tried spying on En's team however and quickly sensed his bioelectricity and had informed his team. Yugito performed Katen Karyudan, which Sasuke copied the hand signs for and attempted before being knocked out instantly from the heavy chakra cost. En grabbed him and had raised the volume on his music with his chakra so he couldn't hear anything before bringing back Sasuke. The screams of the fangirls and the pink-haired one in particular deafened everyone within 50 feet. It took Kakashi to use Doden, Shinjuzanshu no Jutsu, Earth Release, Double Suicide Decapitation Technique, on both of them so that they wouldn't attack En. Kakashi wasn't concerned about En's safety but Sakura's and Ino's if En got pissed off at them. But despite that, the week had been productive, and if they were to actually battle Zabuza and Haku, they would be ready. Dazuna's kitchen. En walks into the kitchen to see everyone there already and a clone of him with 2 mercenaries tied together on the floor. We found these guys today right outside of here waiting for us to leave so they could kidnap Tsunami and Inari. I guess that means today Zabuza is attacking today, En's clone says, causing En to nod in understanding. You can dispel, thanks. En says before turning back to the samurai. They are too low on the food chain to know anything besides they are murderers and rapists, En says, causing Samui to pull out her tanto and stab them both in the jugular, careful to make sure there was no blood. The Konohanin look in shock, Kakashi, that someone so young could kill with ease and precision, in the Jinan. Well, they were freaking out. Sasuke was shaking in life that this girl could kill without caring, but he, an Uchiha, hadn't had his first kill. Sakura and Ino were horrified as they had never seen anyone die before, and this voluptuous girl killed without any emotion. Your Jinan haven't had their first kill? In the academy, all students are given a bird in their second to last year and they care for it for a month before they are told to kill it or they would be dropped from the ninja program. Almost all the academy students did this, with only the spineless ones that fail. We do this so that there is no deadly hesitation in battle, Daru says, causing Kakashi to nod as that is a good procedure. Let's go. Zabuza and Haku may be there already. En yells before jumping out of the window, causing everyone to sigh before following him. At the bridge was silent and covered in a blanket of mist so thick that no one could see more than 5 feet in front of him. En forms a Torah, tiger, hand sign and takes in a deep breath. Fu Uten, Date Appa, wind release, great breakthrough, En says before blowing a large gust of wind that blows away the mist to show Zabuza and Haku in the middle of the field. Told you that wouldn't hold them, Haku says to Zabuza, who sighs and places a hand on his Kubi Kirabocho. Whatever. Just give us the bridge builder and you guys could walk away. He says with a serious tone. Never. Kakashi says, causing everyone to tense and grab onto their weapons before Zabuza makes the first move. Haku, get them, Zabuza says, causing Haku to nod. In a second, she is halfway across the field however and met her at the middle, feet coated in white lightning. Senbone vs Sakabeto, they were at a stalemate but En charged a lightning current through a sword allowing it to easily slice the Senbone. Haku curses before jumping back. She takes a breath before holding a hand out and the air around her gets colder as Hyoton chakra gathers in her hand. Mai, Sode no Shirayuki, dance, sleeve white snow, Haku says, and in her hand forms a beautiful white katana. The Tsuba was a hollow snowflake-like circle, and a white ribbon forms from the pommel. Everyone looks at the blade in shock, which she swirls through the air with the grace of a dancer. An. Okay, so some of you may be mad at me, but this is not a Zanpakuto. It is a sword made out of Hyoton chakra that just happened to be formed to look like Sode no Shirayuki. Coincidence? All of the dances that Rukia uses Haku will use, but they are Hyoton techniques that she uses. Do you think that I grew up with Zabuza and never learned Kenjutsu? Let's see if the Mai no Isumegami can hold out against Hitan Mitsurugi Ryu, she says before shining forward and slicing upwards. En dodges the upward slice before going for a horizontal slash, causing her to jump back to avoid being bisected. Doriasan, Earth Dragon Flash, En says before stabbing his Sakabeto into the ground, causing a few large rocks to fly up into the air, which he kicks at Haku, who turns her sword in a circle. Some no Mai, Tsukashiro, First Dance, White Moon, Haku says as the rocks hit her circle and immediately freeze. En smirks before skating forward to meet Haku in the middle. They cross swords and they are for a second at a standstill. Looks like you are a disadvantage, Haku and En say in unison as they both begin doing one-handed hand seals with left hands. Senshotsu Saishu, 1,000 flying water needles, Haku says, causing 1,000 water needles to come out of the water air and shoot at an almost unavoidable speed. Shirotan, Rateman no Yoroi, En says, causing a white lightning cloak to surround him, and when the Senbone hit him, they automatically evaporate. There is a collective gasp from the Konohanin and En hear them begin to whisper. What technique is that? It's so powerful. Ino asks, causing Kakashi to look at her. That is the Raten no Yoroi, an S-ranked jutsu, almost SS ranked, that is without a doubt one of the most powerful jutsus in existence. It makes it so that genjutsu is useless and taijutsu and ninjutsu becomes weaker against it. Only the Raikage's family know the technique, and it makes some of the fastest in the nations, Kakashi says to his Jinan while in deep thought. They must be trying to bribe him with power so that he will stay with them. If I get him to join Konoha, then Konoha will have another incredibly strong jutsu. This is getting nowhere. Hyoton Makyo Hyoshu, ice release demonic mirroring ice crystals, Haku says, causing 21 An. 21 mirrors to surround En. 12 remain at ground level. 8 float above the first 12 and angled towards the ground, and the final mirror is above the rest and facing the ground. No one ever, En-kun, has ever escaped this jutsu. In here, I move close to the speed of light. It ends here, Haku says as she appears in all of the mirrors at once. Sasuke runs into the ring and stands there with an arrogant smirk on his face. Sasuke, what are you doing here? En yells as he stares into Haku's eyes, waiting for an opening. It will take a Uchiha to defeat her, Sasuke says before forming a bunch of hand seals and taking a deep breath. Katengo Kaki no Jutsu, he says before shooting a fireball maybe 3 feet in diameter at a mirror, almost hitting En, causing En to sweat drop. I'm not pissed that you hit me, but that Usagi-chan shoots larger fireballs in her sleep, En says, causing Haku to sweat drop before throwing dozens of senbons at Sasuke from all directions at a speed that Sasuke wouldn't even be able to blink in time. However, En was not the fastest man in the world for nothing. He moved so fast that there was after images of him and caught all of the senbon with one hand before Sasuke could move. En then sighs and drops all of the senbon, causing a pinging noise as they hit the ground. Sasuke looks at En to see everything much clearer before looking in a puddle to see his eyes are crimson. I have the Sharingan. You cannot defeat me. Sasuke yells before jumping at a mirror, only for a single senbon to come from behind him and strike him in the back of his neck, paralyzing him front to waist down. En sighs before turning off his Raten no Yoroi and drawing his Sakabeto, charging it with Raten chakra, giving it an extended blade and white hue. It's been funny, Haku-chan. But it is time for me to end our dance, N says before placing his Sakabato into its sheath and getting into a Butjutsu stance. There is the signature white flash of the Tenso and 20 ends appear. Oku no Ryushozen. Many dragon flight flash, and yells as all of the images of him cuts upwards simultaneously and destroy 20 of the 21 mirrors, leaving one more with Haku standing in it before it melts and she walks out. What speed was those clones? Zabuza asks while inside he is glad he joined Kumo as he would hate to be against 10. No, that is the Tenso ni no Dan. The second step of one of the only SS-ranked jutsu in the nations. It involves its users to be in multiple places at once by teleporting between them all at the speed of light. Samui explains what En had told her when he had first thought of it. Incredible. So that is the power of a S-ranked ninja, Zabuza says, but it is echoed by a voice behind him. Everyone turns around to see Gato in all his midget glory and several hundred mercenaries. I gave you one job, Zabu-chan, and you failed. You could have killed the bridge builder before the Raijin or Daru of the Kuroi Kaminari got here. I guess that the Kirigakure no Kijin is just a baby demon. Kill them and keep the girls, they could be fun, Gato says with a lecherous grin, causing Zabuza and En to become riled up. Ready, kid? Zabuza says as he pulls out Kubi Kirabocho. Shall we dance? En says before pulling out Kokuryu in his right arm and having a Tonebagiri in his left. Suddenly En disappears in a flash and there is a scream as a Tonebagiri is punched through a thug's stomach and Kokuryu decapitates 2 other thugs' heads. That was the cue for Zabuza, Kakashi and Daru to jump in. Zabuza begins to massacre the knives for hire in front of him, limbs flying and organs falling while he is showered in blood. Kakashi uncovers the Sharingan and begins to dance around his opponents, predicting their movements before stabbing them in vital areas with his Taindo and Chidori. Daru flashes through a few hand seals before a Kuroi Kaminari Raiten no Yoro appears around him. He pulls out his cleaver sword, slicing his enemies in half with ease and blocking all strikes with his ultimate defense. The number of thugs begin to decrease until one thing happens that changes it all. The Junon were surrounding Tazuna just in case any thugs got past the fighters before Sasuke runs into the battle. Sasuke-kun. Wait, don't go. You could get hurt. Ino yells, causing Sasuke to look at her with his signature arrogant smirk. I am an Uchiha. These thugs won't hurt me. The almighty Uchiha yells before running into the battle, however is quickly surrounded by thugs. He throws a kunai at a thug expecting him to dodge as ninjas always do, however this wannabe samurai was no ninja and the kunai strikes him right in the forehead, killing him instantly. Sasuke hesitates as he had never killed before, and that split moment hesitation gives one of the thugs time to lunge with his katana. Sasuke looks at katana as it comes towards him, then the girls before smirking. He uses a kawarimi with Haku, causing her to be impaled through the shoulder. Haku's scream resonates through the battle and suddenly 2 ores of chakra ignite. One more powerful while the other filled with more rage. Zabuza appears in a sunshine and picks up Haku and checks her wound to find it non-fatal. En appears next and grabs Sasuke by the throat and lifts him up, the battleground silent as he talks. You are worse than scum. There are many reasons why I should hate your village, but I know my father and mother were from there, so I respect it. But if you are the type of Junon coming out of Konoha, then my father has died in vain. The world would be better if the Kyuubi had snuffed out the will of fire altogether than for it to be in such a sorry state that it is now. En lectures before dropping the last Uchiha unceremoniously before glaring back at the battle. Daru, Kakashi and Zabuza get the message and exit, leaving En against the remaining 400 thugs. You ready, Kurama? En says to his partner in his head. Let's dance, Kurama says En to gain a blood-red slit for eyes. Haijutsu Tenso San no Dan. En yells before he is simply not there. Suddenly there is the thud of 400 bodies falling. Some decapitated, others bisected, some ripped apart, all dead, all simultaneously. Gato falls to his knees as he looks in fear as his army was destroyed in an instant before En stands in front of him. In that moment he looked exactly as his title proclaimed him to be. A god. For too long you have plagued this land, Gato, and for this you shall die. En says as he pulls out Kokuryu. No longer dirty this world with your presence, En says as he cleanly decapitates Gato in one movement. It was at that moment that En received a new title, Bishamon, the god of war and judgment. En gestures and Inari followed by 100 villagers or so come out, armed with miscellaneous weapons. En picks up Gato's head and seals it away before handing that to Tazuna. Most if not all of Gato's safes are going to be retina protected so that should be able to get back what Nami no Kuni deserves, En says, causing Tazuna to nod before En walks over to Inari, who is crying. Hey, don't cry, Toto. Heroes don't cry. En says, causing Inari to look at En with red eyes. But I'm not the hero, you're the Nami no Kuni no Au. Inari exclaims, causing a loud cheer to erupt from the crowd, causing En to sigh as he knew that would also be going in the bingo book. Inari, you are more of a hero than any of us are. You rallied these people, You show them that there is hope and it is because of you that this country has turned around. You are the true Nami no Kuni no Aun says to Inari before turning to the crowd. It's been a long day, let's go home En says, causing the crowd to cheer once more before walking back to their homes, all with content looks on their faces. En takes a step forward before falling face first, but Daru is fast enough to catch him. Don't worry, it's just fatigue. He hasn't mastered the San no Dan and was only able to do it with the help of the Kyuubi. It's dull that he had to faint though, Daru says, causing everyone to nod and walk towards Tazana's house, but not before sweat dropping at Daru's use of dull. An hour later, En wakes up in the guest room of Tazana's house and pulls himself out of bed. He had only slept for half an hour but his chakra reserves were already filled by Kurama and he felt refreshed. As he walks down the stairs, he sees Zabuza and Sasuke arguing and En knew it about and En was very pissed off about it. Sasuke Uchiha, you are the lowest level of human being and I am disappointed that Usagi thought that you could be saved, En says before walking out the door. However, Sasuke grabs his Akatsuki cloak. Where is she? Sasuke says with his feeble ki, killer intent, being pushed at En. Let go of my cloak, En says through gritted teeth. If there was one thing you should know about En was that, never touch the cloak, ever. You will tell me where she is and you will teach me everything you know to help me kill her, Sasuke says while turning on his Sharingan as he attempts to intimidate En. En in his anger loads Raiten chakra in his finger and strikes 3 tenketsu, causing Sasuke to stiffen like a board and fall over, but you could tell he was awake from the way his eyes were moving. You are a pitiful human being that has been pampered all his life and does not accept hard work like the rest of your clan. You do not value sacrifice as your civilian council babies you at every turn, and your almighty Uchiha clan are just a bunch of copycats that steal others' work as their own. Usagi and the rest of the clan would be disappointed on how pitiful you are, and scolds as he walks away and Sasuke comes out of his paralysis. Sasuke flips through a few 11-hand seals that causes Kakashi, who is walking down the stairs, to yell for him to stop. Chidori. Sasuke yells as he goes to stab En with his weak lightning, however En was ahead of him. En holds his hand out and breathes, calling on his godly affinity and imagining the volts of electricity jumping from Sasuke's hand and into En's palm, leaving Sasuke to give a weak punch to En's chest before En grabs his wrist. You are pathetic, En says before snapping Sasuke's wrist with ease and walking out of the door, ignoring Sasuke's screams of pain and Zabuza's sadistic chuckle. Next day, the bridge was finally finished with the help of 500 clones of En and it was time to leave Nami no Kuni. At the base of the bridge was where the population of the nation gathered along with Team 13 and Team 7. We would like to honor these teams as without them, the great Tazana, would not be able to build this bridge. Guess who said this? It was an honor to serve this country, Daru says to the crowd who cheers while En goes down to on one knee to Inari. En takes out a mini scroll from a pouch and activates the seal. In his hand was a black katana and a few scrolls which he hands to Inari. Hey Atoto. I know you want to help your family one day, so I want to give you these. This katana is really special and it will only cut when you want it to. These scrolls are on basic ninja training like chakra control and some basic techniques. I want you to become strong so one day when I visit you, you will be stronger than me, En says as he rubs the tears from Inari's face. You'll visit, right? Inari asks, causing En to smirk. Promise, En says with his fist out, which Inari bums. En stands up and faces his team before he nods. Let's go. En says before the two teams of nin acknowledge each other before walking in the directions of their homes, but one silver-haired Jounin was thinking other things as his team tree jumped at low non speeds due to Sakura. I'll get you back to your home in Konoha, Naruto, Kakashi thinks to himself. In wave. What should we name the bridge? A random villager asks, causing everyone to think. How about the Great Tazana Bridge? Tazana says, causing Tsunami to pull out a frying pan and hit him on the head, causing a huge bump to appear. How about the Great Raijin Bridge, after the ninja who saved our country in an instant? Inari says, causing a loud cheer, and from then on, Nami no Kuni was once again the great country it once was. Hokage's office. You ran into WHO. Hiruzen Sarutobi, the shinobi no kami, yells as he floods the room with killer intent aimed towards one man, Sharingan no Kakashi. Kakashi was sweating as he looks over to his leader before he steals his nerves and pulls out his bingo book. In Team 7C turned A ranked mission, we encountered Zabuza Momochi, the Kirigakure no Kijin, Daru no Kuroi Kaminari and the Raijin, and Yatsuki Namikaze, or as we may know him, Naruto Uzumaki Namikaze. Kakashi Hitake informs, and as soon as he says it, he never felt more scared in his life as when Hiruzen Sarutobi set his glare upon him. You are telling me that Kumo has the only surviving heir of our late Hokage and our missing Jinchuriki. Not only that, but Naruto is also an S-ranked ninja, member of the Akatsuki, Has 2 bloodlines along with extremely durable skin and is the fastest man alive. The council must be informed, the Sundaime Hokage says to Kakashi before writing a quick note and sending that by messenger hawk to the council members. Come, Hiruzen says before walking out the door towards the council hall while thinking to himself, don't worry Naruto, I'll bring you back to where you belong. Raikage's office. It is that time of the year. Team 12, Team 13, Team 14. You will represent Kumo in the Chunin exam, Z says as talks to the Asian Anon in front of him. Team 12 were Moe, Kara and Kei all had looks of shock on their faces as they did not expect for them to be nominated. Team 13 are Samui, Yugito and En all had varying reactions, with En and Yugito having similar looks of shock to Team 12 while Samui and Team 14, which includes Konan and Yuki, all having an expressionless look on their faces. You are the best that Kumo has to offer and I can think of none better than you to represent us in Kimimaro. Travel with them as well for extra security. That is all. Dismissed, Z instructs, causing everyone to bow and leave except for En. En. I have a ranked mission for you. You are to break into the Namikaze Uzumaki compound and take anything of importance so that you can place it in the new compound here. Understand? Z instructs, causing En to nod, understanding at the seriousness in his voice. Hi, Raikage-sama, En says, causing Z to nod and wave his hand in a dismissing motion. Dismissed, Z says, causing En to nod and leave in a flash. At Konoha, a week later, Izumo and Kotetsu, the eternal guardians of Konoha, were sitting at their posts and they were, for lack of a better word, bored. They had checked in only a few teams, but otherwise the day had been boring. At least until a group of ninjas started walking the road. 4 had on a Akatsuki cloak which immediately put them on guard, but when they grew near and they saw at least 4 S-ranked ninja, they raised the alarm, telling the Yonbu to be on guard. A dark-skinned man with shaggy white hair walked up to them. Daru, elite jounin of Kumo, wishing to register 3 teams for the Chunin exams on behalf of Kumogakure no Sato. Daru says to the guards who write them down and was about to wave them through but is stopped when 5 Onbu shine in front of them. Naruto Uzumaki Namikaze, you are to come with us to meet with the Hokage or we will use force, the lead Onbu says, causing En's team to get ready for battle, but En raises his hand to stop them. I will meet you at the hotel in an hour. Let us go, En says to his team before looking toward Onbu, who grabs his arm and sends them away to Hokage Tower. Hokage Tower. En appears in the large office that looked very much like his father's, just more cramped and with more red than blue and yellow. In the chair was an elderly man with long gray hair and many wrinkles that showed his age. He gave En the look of an elderly grandfather, but En could see that he was analyzing En before he opens his mouth. Naruto, it is good to have you home, the Sundaime Hokage says, causing En to scowl. Hokage Dono. My name is En Yatsuki Namikaze, En says respectfully, but he was pissed that the Hokage was trying to force something onto him. He respected his biological family's name for him, but En was the name he was given as a child and that is the name he kept. Hiruzen Sarutobi sighs and looks at the boy, no warrior in front of him. He then sighed. I am sorry Minato, I have lost your child to Kumo. Hokage Dono, I must ask, why am I here? En says with a blank look on his face as to not let out any emotions. Because I want you to come home, Nar, En Hiruzen says with sadness in his voice as looks at the young man in front of him. Hokage Dono, all due respect, but you only want me to come home so that you feel better about yourself and the fact that I know many village secrets of Kumo. Also I am sure that Kakashi told you that I am the Raijin, the S-ranked ninja and one of the leaders of the Akatsuki. Hokage Dono, respectively, you do want me, you want my skills and resources. Is that all? No, that is all, the shinobi no kami says, causing En to bow and stand up before looking the Sundaime in the eyes, causing him to shiver. Hiruzen looks into the golden-haired boy and for a second sees Minato in those cerulean blue eyes. Good day Hokage Dono, En says before flashing away, causing Hiruzen once more to sigh that he had lost the next flash to Kumo. However, deep in his heart, despite not wanting to believe it, he knew that En was happy in Kumo and should stay there despite what the council believed. Hokage Monument. En stands on top of his father's head as stares over the village. It was so serene and beautiful, however his moment was ruined when he sensed the bioelectricity of 2 Onbu teams, one sent by the Hokage and the other sent by Danzo, which causes him to smirk. Try to keep up, En says before disappearing in a flash, eager to finish his mission. Namikaze Uzumaki compound. En appears right outside of the compound to find, in fact, there was no compound, only a torii. There has to be a seal here somewhere, En says as he places his hand on the torii and begins to search for the seal. It's on the left side, right below eye level, Kurama informs, causing En to nod as he knew that his mother was Kurama's last Jinchuriki, so it would sense for him to know how to enter the compound. And just where Kurama said it would be is the blood seal to enter the compound. En pulls out a kunai from his holster and charges it with Shirotan chakra as a normal blade would not be able to scratch his skin. He then slices a large cut across his palm and places it onto the seal, causing it to glow blue. The seal then floats off of the torii and in between its two columns before expanding to cover the entire opening. Walk through the seal, Kurama instructs, causing En to facepalm. My father was a genius in Jakuken Jutsu, so why wouldn't he put the compound somewhere where enemies and fangirls couldn't get our family? En thinks to himself before walking through the seal to find himself in the place where his family had spent their lives. The compound was medium-sized and had a large training field outside. I thought that the Hokage would have a larger compound, and ponders. After all, the leader of the village should have an expensive home. Your family never lived very lavishly, but still, this compound holds many valuables of the family. Go to the library, that's where all the jutsu and the vault is, Kurama says, causing En to walk through the hallways before walking into the library. The library appears small from the outside, but inside it was at least 25 feet high and had many bookshelves broken up by subject and the jutsu split by affinity. But besides the shelves, there was a seal that was at least 10 feet in diameter on the wall opposite the books. En could only look at the shelves with awe and could almost not resist the urge to sit down and read through everything. We don't have time. Just grab everything and seal it away. This is the largest collection of jutsu in Konoha, but no could get in after your family died, so this could cripple Konoha in the future. Hurry up, then you can go into the vault. Kurama says, causing En to nod and pull out a scroll from an arm seal. He opens it up to see two seals, one that has the kanji for knowledge and the other history. En then places his palm on the seal that says knowledge and pushes chakra into it. Fun, seal, he says, and all of the scrolls and books fly off of the shelves and enter the seal. En gives a satisfied sigh before turning toward the vault on the wall. It only responds to the chakra of Uzumaki and your father, so just push chakra into the seal, Kurama explains, causing En to nod in understanding before he places his hand on the wall and pushes chakra into it. The seal slowly unravels itself in a clockwise formation before the vault opens. Inside, the vault is split up into 7 sections, one for each nature transformation, one for Fuinjutsu and one for artifacts. En then opens the scroll and sucks in all of the S-ranked elemental jutsu and Fuinjutsu before he walks down the artifact section. There are dozens of scrolls, but En does not even look at most of them except for a small one that says Reiyumi, lightning longbow, which he slips into his pocket. He continues to walk to the end before he sees 2 large scrolls on a pedestal. Take those scrolls and let's go. We've been here for too long, Kurama says, causing En to nod in agreement before grabbing the scrolls and sealing everything away. En puts the large scroll on his lower back. En. Think Jiraiya and the Toad summoning scroll, before he then concentrates on the address of the hotel and he's gone in a flash. In the Kumo Hotel, En appears right in the living room to see everyone gathered around a table and Daru talking, however this stops when En flash in. How was the mission? Daru asks, causing En to smirk and pull out the large scroll from behind his back. Good, I found some stuff that we could use in the exams, En says before he unseals the Kaden, Fuuten, Doden and Raiden techniques. Here En says before handing a scroll about Raiden Hiraishin to Samui, 2 scrolls on Raiden Lightning Flow to Amoi and Karu, a scroll about Doden Domu, Earth Release Earth Spear, and a scroll about Fuuten Date Appa, Wind Release Great Breakthrough, to Konan. We can practice in the Kumo training grounds. Here, put this seal to block other teams, Anbu and the Hokage, from getting in or spying, En says, causing everyone to nod and shine away. Yuki just wants to practice to get her Shinra Tensei delay to blow 8 seconds. En begins to walk out the door when he hears Kimimaro. Where are you going? Kimimaro asks as he turns away from planning with Daru. The training ground for maybe an hour, then I'm getting ramen, En says before showing them the Reiyumi scroll, causing them to nod before he flashes away. An hour later, En was walking through Konoha with his Akatsuki cloak up to block his face and hair from everyone. The hour had been productive as En could perform the Reiyumi easily. The jutsu created a longbow almost as tall as him out of lightning and created an arrow made out of lightning as well. The jutsu was C-ranked but had the potential to be A-ranked when En used Shirotan chakra as an arrow easily punched through 3 wooden dummies. Right now En was walking into a small little ramen bar and sits down at a stool when a teenage girl maybe 4 years older than him comes out. En. I'm too lazy to describe Ayame, but you know how she looks like. Hi, I'm Ayame Ichi Yondaime-sama, Ayame yells as she points at En, who just raises an eyebrow. I'm afraid you've got me mixed up with my father. My name is En Yatsuki Namikaze, I'm here for the Chunin exams, En says, causing an older man to poke his head out of the kitchen and look at him. Hey Gaki, the name's Tuchi Ichiraku. What do you want? Tuchi asks, causing En to smile at the man's enthusiasm. Can I get a miso ramen? En asks, causing Ayame to nod and go back into the kitchen while Tuchi mans the bar. So how does the last living relative of the Yondaime end up in Kumo and the son of the Raikage? Tuchi asks, causing En to nod as he was expecting the question. I was adopted as a baby and the Sandaime Raikage adopted me. N says before looking around a small bar before he hears Ayame come out. Here you go. Ayame says as she places the completed bowl of ramen and N immediately knows it is better than the ramen in Kumo. Itadakimasu. N says as he breaks his chopsticks before diving in. He takes one bite before almost crying before jumping off his stool and going in front of Ayame. He gets on one knee and pulls out a diamond ring from God knows where and looks the brown-haired girl in the eye. Ayame Ichiraku, will you marry me? N confesses, causing the ramen mistress to turn beet red, and was about to respond when they hear a cough behind them, causing them to turn. Standing there is Tucci, cleaver in hand and demonic visage behind him, causing N to back up. Marry, you? Die. Tucci yells as he throws the cleaver, causing N to flash 2 feet to his right to avoid the flying knife. Tucci however just pulls out 10 other knives and gets ready to throw. Thank you for the ramen. Gotta go. N yells as he slaps the money on the table and flashing away, causing Ayame to sigh. Sito-san, this is why I can't find a boyfriend, Ayame says as she gets back to her work. Down the street, Fu N breaths in relief as he walks away from the scene of an attempted murder. He walks into an intersection to see a guy in a footy pajamas, makeup and cat ears holding an 8-year-old kid by his shirt with his rather hot sister, Ino and Sakura, standing by. N charges Shirotan chakra into his hand to form his Rayumi and shoots an arrow right near the guy's face, causing him to flinch and move backwards. N then flashes right in that opening and grabs the kid and pulls him away. He puts the kid down before holding his sakabeto to the guy's neck. The blonde-haired girl looks at N in awe as all she had saw was a few flashes and the kid was gone, and Kankuro was at sword point while Ino and Sakura were glaring at the blonde-haired boy. Kinda low, holding a threatening an 8-year-old. And you guys, isn't Konoha supposed to be all about friendship and family? N says before looking at the tree. You can come down now, N says, prompting Sasuke to jump down and walk next to his teammates, but N just shakes his head. I meant you, N says, causing a red-haired boy to jump down from the branch above Sasuke. He was shorter than N and had pale blue-green eyes along with the black rings around his eyes. He is wearing a black full-body suit with t-shirt-like sleeves, 3/4 length legs, and an open neck. With this, he wore a white cloth over his right shoulder and the left side of his hips, and a wide leather band system over the left shoulder and right side of his hips. With this leather band, he carried around his 2 medium-sized gourd with that looked to be made of sand and the other made of what appeared to be silver. He also wrapped his black forehead protector over the band. Kankuro, you are a disgrace to our village. Come before I kill you, the red-haired boy says, radiating ki at Jonin levels, causing everyone but N to shiver. What is your name? The boy asks, and however Sasuke didn't get the memo. Sasuke Uchiha, Sasuke exclaims with an arrogant smirk, but the boy shakes his and points a finger at N. You, the boy says, causing his siblings to shiver in fear as they knew the last time the boy was interested in someone. N Yatsuki Namikaze, you? N says before asking, causing the boy his name. N looks the kid in the eye and holds up 9 fingers, causing the boy to widen his eyes in surprise. Sabaku no Gaara, Gaara of the desert, Gaara says with one finger up before disappearing in Asuna Sunshine, Sand Sunshine, with his siblings closely following. Team 7 quickly walks up to N with kunai out, but N is just standing there smiling. Why are you here? Ino asks, causing N to flash her a grin. Didn't the scarecrow tell you? The Chunin exams are coming up. Johnny N says before disappearing in a flash. That's the end, guys. If you enjoyed, then make sure to leave a comment. This is Chaos Shinobi signing off.